Milk and milk products have been the food staple of mankind since the beginning of recorded history. They are truly the one food source that has allowed us to become civilized and to develop societies as we know them today. But now, milk has a bad name. The ongoing debate over the adverse or beneficial effects of milk have been a controversial subject for decades. Some experts say that milk is good for you, while some experts say it is bad. But the question remains, is conventional milk healthy for you? The billion-dollar dairy industry would have you believe it is, even using celebrities to endorse milk and spending millions of advertising dollars to promote it. But today, there are more people than ever before with detrimental health effects from milk, including lactose intolerance and allergies. Is it the milk itself, or is it the way that it is being processed and delivered in this corporate farming world we live in? Are the cows in a modern corporate dairy farm in optimal health themselves? Are the problems we see with today's milk a result of pasteurization or homogenization, which are relatively new developments in the history of milk? Is raw milk a viable alternative? Raw milk is produced the way nature intended it. It is not pasteurized or homogenized. In organic dairy farms, cows naturally graze on green, organic grasses. And the milk is collected and then delivered in its natural state, just like it was for the past several thousand years. In this program, we'll look at the processes and procedures of gathering and delivering raw milk to your table and attempt to give you the information you need to make intelligent, informed decisions about its consumption. We'll take you on a tour of a raw milk dairy farm, give you a chance to meet the cows themselves, and speak with Mark McAfee, the owner of this farm, who happens to be one of the top advocates of raw milk. Then we'll meet and talk with David Gethoff, an internationally recognized doctor of naturopathy, who is an expert on the relationship of natural foods and your health. He'll share with us some amazing facts about the milk that is readily available versus raw milk. Now, let's get started with this fascinating look at raw milk in this program that we've called The Truth About Milk.
We have 405 acres of organically certified pasture ground, which we grow organic feeds on. And we also pasture our cows here. And then we have about 300 cows that graze progressively and rotationally around the property.
Rotation?
Yeah.
So you're not always in one area.
Exactly. Every week they get moved to a new paddock. In fact, we can see where some of the paddocks, we can see later today.
Where do you want to start? You want to start?
Let's start there. Let's start out the cows. Where it all begins, right here.
Well, so here you are, and this is the pasture. It's interesting that, what does a pasture look like? I think a lot of Americans have no clue what a pasture looks like anymore.
This is a pasture. This is a natural, organically certified pasture. And you'll notice it's not just one thing growing out here. There's many things growing out here. We have fescue, ryegrass, clover, alfalfa, strawberry clover, ladino clover, chemophasalolium, if you can pronounce that. You got ryegrass, Johnson grass, you got netgrass. You got all kinds of biodiversity. And you've got a natural cow that's going through and saying, oh, that's my diet. I want to eat that, and I want to eat that. I don't want to eat this. She has a smorgasbord that she herself selects what she wants and what she needs physiologically.
Do they eat different things on different days? Or?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about different days, but maybe Fridays they eat fish. I don't know. But they do eat different things during different times of the year, or different times of the month, or different times of their gestation, where they're calving, where they have different needs. They can eat different things or want different things.
Now, does this stuff just grow naturally, or how does it work?
Well, we start out with a regular alfalfa. And then as it becomes weedier and weedier, more and more biodiverse, as we say, we add in some other seeds. And they grow seasonally. So, the clovers like to grow in the spring and summer, and in the wintertime, other things like to grow. And so, Mother Nature has the way she sorts it out. But we irrigate here once a month, and we allow the cows to graze, and we rotate them so that they're never on the same spot for more than a few days at a time. Right. We have alfalfa, which is high in protein, high in fiber. And it's the basic feed out here in this pasture, which is the alfalfa. We have just regular grass. This is just grass like you would find in your lawn.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, and it it serves as a nice turf support for the cow's feet. You know, the cows have a pretty destructive way to, you know, the cow walking around can tear things up pretty well.
Right.
And the grass, the Bermuda grass, will actually support the feet of the cow and keep the other plants alive. Here you've got some Johnson grass growing here, and also some Sudan grass. Right now we don't have a lot of clover growing. Clover is kind of something that happens in the earlier spring. Let's see.
So the cows just walk around and they just pick what they want to pick.
Yeah, it should be an unusual thing to observe. This is very unusual. Because most all dairies in the United States are conventional or confinement conventional dairies, where the cows are put into a small pen in crowded conditions with a big pile of manure, and they scrape the manure out to keep the pen fairly clean, obviously. And it gets muddy in the wintertime, and the cows are always reaching through a fence to try to find that blade of grass. And there's never a blade of grass on these dairies because the cows will eat it immediately. If we find a cow reaching through a fence, we've already screwed up, because they should be there on the other side of the fence already. And that's what we do, is we allow the cows to graze, and that's why we have an electric fence here. I mean, we have a 12-volt solar-powered electric fence. The cows could go through that at any time they wanted, if they want to leave the place.
Right.
It's free range. But because they want to be here, they're not reaching through a fence, there's really no reason to confine them, because it's kind of a free range environment.
Well, how about that? So that
Yeah.
little ribbon is a fence.
Yeah, it's a fence, electric fence.
So they just get a little tingle when they touch it.
Yeah, they don't want to go over there because right here is nirvana. Why would they want to go over there? You know? So it's an entirely natural system here. We've got cows with no antibiotics, no hormones, no GMOs. They're being bred with bulls instead of artificially inseminated, so they get sex. And that's an unusual thing. Most dairy cows are bred artificially. And that's a pretty tough
procedure?
Yeah, I mean, you got a guy coming through with a glove up to here, reaching down their rectum every morning for several mornings every month, trying to find out if they're pregnant or not.
Wow.
And then inseminating them with some sperm derived or semen derived from some hybrid cow that is going to cause a hybrid offspring. And you know, there's no hormones involved with these cow production. You know, all the organic standards are prevailing in terms of the production. And so it's a completely natural environment. And the cows live 4 times longer because of it. They put out less milk, but the milk value and quality is much higher. I mean, you got different kinds of butterfat. The omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid ratios are different. The CLA values are different. It's just an entirely different milk. It's a natural milk. And we find most dramatically, most excitingly, is that when you go natural like this and you put the cow on a green grass pasture, you never find pathogens. And pathogens are disease-causing organisms for human beings. Bad bugs. You never find them. They're just not there.
Or are the cows themselves just healthier?
They're healthier, but their physiology has changed. The rumen is a completely different environment when you don't have antibiotics. Antibiotics are an indiscriminate shotgun on the body. They go in and they're intended to kill a particular pathogen, let's say, that's making a disease process occur, let's say, causing an infection in the uterus or something, or not the uterus, but the udder. Mastitis. Well, it doesn't just go after that infection. It goes after every bacteria in the entire body. And what is a cow? A cow is a living organism with a big digestive tract that is a fermentation vat, is what it is. Well, fermentation takes place because of bacteria and temperature, warmth. Well, guess what? You're going to knock out those bacterium with antibiotics. So the digestive tract completely goes to shreds when you give a cow antibiotics. So you feed them a lot of grain, a lot of antibiotics, you put them in a place where there's no green grass, and you start seeing pathogens in their manure, and lots of pathogens. In fact, the UC Davis studies have found that 31% of the milk tanks that were tested in the last few years showed that they had a human pathogen present in the raw manure, excuse me, in the raw milk from these cows, and that came from the raw manure on these dairies that use all these conventional factory farm practices. When our manure was tested, not one single solitary human pathogen was found in the herd when they tested the fresh raw manure.
So the manure is healthy.
The manure is healthy, therefore there's no cross-contamination potential into the raw milk. And that's what's really extraordinary here is we've got healthy cows, we've got healthy manure, and therefore you have healthy milk. And you don't find pathogens because they are outcompeted. Even if they did exist, they would be the rare one on the block with all the peacekeepers, you know, and you got all these good bacteria surrounding and always choking out the bad bacteria. Pretty interesting.
So if I could interview one of your cows, what would they say?
They say bug off, I'm in nirvana, I don't want to be disturbed. I think what our cows would say is I like what I eat, I like how I feel, I like how I'm treated. You know, this is a natural environment. This is where God designed me to be for the last 10,000 years, is on a green grass pasture.
So how many cows can you support in this environment with this amount of land? I mean, because obviously there is a limit, right? And that's one of the
certainly.
problems with a factory farm. They're trying to jam too many cows into a certain area.
Absolutely, you're exactly right. You know, when you've got 10,000 cows on a on 30 acres, right, or 40 acres, and they're all in a freestall system where it's concrete floors with rubber mats, and literally they never see the light of day because they're all under barn shades, and their areas are flushed with manure water every day, so that they're always standing in a fairly methane-rich environment. The gases aren't, the air isn't particularly good. They're eating a lot of grain, a lot of fermented foods like silages, and they're given antibiotics in their feed or injected into them, and they may even be getting hormones. A lot of hormone protocols going on with BST, which is an artificial milk enhancement, growth enhancement to get the cows to produce more milk. It's an entirely abnormal environment, and it creates abnormal milk. And that abnormal milk needs to go to a pasteurizer, or else somebody's going to get sick. Right. So you've really got two different paradigms. You got the paradigm that currently all the regulations and all the media supports, which is raw milk intended for pasteurization, which must always go to pasteurization, and is always commingled with everybody else's dairy, and it has its issues. It's got high histamine counts, so it triggers asthma reactions, and has lots of dead bacteria because it's all killed off during the processing, and you know, it has its paradigm. And then you have raw milk intended for human consumption directly, and that's organic pastures dairy. And when you do that, it's an entirely different thing. All living bacteria, all living enzymes, no pathogens, completely natural, unprocessed, as it's always been for the last 10,000 years since cows were first domesticated in the southern grasslands of Russia and Ukraine. So it is really the untold story of milk here embodied in what's going on right here, is the untold story. Because this has been the sustenance for civilizations all around the world for 10, 12,000 years. It hasn't been pasteurized milk. The land of milk and honey wasn't pasteurized. You know, the milk is natural from a cow that's nearby the house. The milk can be consumed freshly and on a daily basis. That's what it's always been. And that's what we've tried to replicate here, so that we have an all-natural product, which is really food for the soul, food for the body, that has tremendous medicinal value in terms of its natural curing of disease processes, and absorbability and utilizability in terms of nutrition and enzymes and bacteria and all the stuff that's in milk. Yeah.
So here these cows are. So no, like I said, on this farm, how many cows do you have right now?
We have approximately 380 cows on 400 acres right now. So we're at about less than 1 cow per acre. But you can actually put a lot more cows per acre if you rotationally graze them, so that they're only here for a few days and then they go to the next pasture, and then you irrigate and it regrows. Because you don't want to really spread the cows out over all 400 acres at the same time. You want them to be intensively on one place, eat it all up, and then move away and let that place completely relax, completely recover. And irrigate it and let it regrow. Let all the manure, the urine, you know,
get absorbed into the work.
Yeah, it's part of the whole nitrogen cycle, and it's part of your fertility program.
Right.
And
so you know, these grasses grow pretty quick, don't they?
Oh yeah, you'll have 2.5 feet tall, 30 inches tall in 4 weeks.
Wow, we let it get that tall and then have the cows come on?
Generally don't quite get that tall. We're generally about 20 inches or so when the cows come back in.
They must be really happy to see that, huh?
In fact, you'll see a cow jumping and running. When they first enter the green pasture, my wife is always excited because they just jump and run. You know, and you just don't see that when a cow's walking into a manure field. They just like, oh, we're back home again. But this is cow heaven, basically. Yeah.
And so here they are. So you've got how many guys out here right now?
Oh, this is only about 75 cows here. This is our dry pen where the cows give birth to their calves. And in fact, there's one that just gave birth this morning, sitting over in that other pen over there. She's looking on her calf this morning. And this afternoon, somebody else is going to give birth out here. We've got 2 or 3 that are going to give birth today.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's all kind of natural stuff, huh?
Completely. Being pregnant is a natural state of affairs for a cow in a herd where there's bulls and cows all together. Because whenever a cow is not pregnant, bulls, they know that, and they go breed them, and they get them pregnant. So a cow generally in a natural environment gives birth to a calf about once a year, once every 12 months. So they're only unpregnant for 2 to 3 months at a time. before a bull gets to them and they become pregnant again. And that's the natural state of affairs in a natural herd, bovine herd.
Now, you see, this is interesting because, you know, people like myself, we're 2 generations away from the farm.
At least 2.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. You know, I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Sure.
And so, you know, I was just there. My dad kind of had, you know, there was a pretty rural area.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people have never seen any of this or even imagined any of this.
No. All people can generally imagine is what they see on TV as the advertisement for the milk cow. And the dairy industry has done a great job of advertising cows just like mine out here in this dairy, when in fact that's not the truth. That's what they'd like to show, because that's what people want to perceive of the truth of a dairy cow's life, but that's not what truly happens 99% of the time. The cow is in a confinement facility with not a stitch of grass ever in her life. So it's an entirely different...
And no bulls.
And no bulls. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some dairies have bulls, but most of the time not.
Poor girls.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. This is really fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the starting point. Where this is where these are, you said dry in a sense that dry in what way?
Well, when we say dry cows, we mean pregnant cows that are no longer being milked because they're during a period right before delivering their calf where we don't milk them any longer. And they're actually collecting colostrum in their udders in preparation for giving birth to their calf.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of a rest period for like 8-9 weeks right before they give birth, where we let them just relax, gain weight, build back their reserves, take care of their calf, which is now residing inside, and basically nutritionally kind of replenish themselves. And during that period of time, they also store colostrum in their udders, which are the starting point for the baby's nutrition when the baby's born. So it's a time of rest for the cows.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, would a conventional dairy, they probably wouldn't be happy to have a cow off the milk train.
Well, conventional dairies also have dry cows as well. Everybody dries off their cows approximately 6 to 8 weeks prior to delivery of the calf, but very few of them dry them off in an environment which is natural. Most dry them off with a shot of antibiotics, a shot of hormone, a dry-off hormone, various different things that are injected into their udders or into their bodies, which actually cause them to do artificial things during the dry-off period, keeps them from having infections and so on and so forth. Because they're going from a period of producing milk to a period of not producing milk. During that period it can be kind of stressful. And there's a lot of artificial things going on there on a conventional herd that we don't do anything like that. So it is a very natural dry-off period versus kind of an unnatural dry-off period.
And when they give birth, they just give birth out here, just like
Absolutely.
God intended, huh?
Absolutely. You find a cow sniffing ground by herself out away from the herd the day before, kind of looking for a place to lay down and give birth to her calf. And in a conventional herd, you don't see that. It's a natural behavior that's kind of been lost. Where here, you see a cow out smelling the ground, looking around, and kind of finding a place where she's going to lay down and laying down and giving birth to a calf by herself. And generally, you don't see that in conventional herds.
Cool. It's
a natural behavior. So this is where it begins.
Excellent. Let's move on. Let's go.
Okay.
Great stuff. So now, what do we have out here?
Well, we got a new addition to the herd here. We got a Holstein cow, gave birth to her little heifer calf, and she gave birth this morning. Calf's only a few hours old. And you see her udders nice and swollen. That's filled with colostrum, and it's kind of inflamed because she hasn't been milked in a few weeks, or actually 2 months. So the calf's going to start suckling on her, and she's already had her first meal this morning. And,
so tell me about the colostrum. Now that's really the life-giving food, isn't it? That's the food of life, huh?
Colostrum is the most miraculous food known to mammals. Let's put it that way. Every mammal produces colostrum. Dolphins produce colostrum. Human females produce colostrum. Cows produce colostrum. It is the natural way that our bodies have been engineered over the duration of millennia, to transfer the immune experience of the mother to the baby. Because the immune system of the baby isn't shared internally in the uterus with the mother, it's separate blood system, separate everything, very little immune system information, immunoglobulins and other inherited traits are transferred in utero between the mother and the baby. So the first meal that the baby gets is colostrum, which is basically a collection of those immune factors that are put into the udder or collected in the udder and then suckled into the baby. Well, the baby has a very porous digestive tract. So these large immunoglobulins can actually be absorbed through the digestive tract into the blood system and into the baby's body. And you actually then put on the mother's immune system experience in a baby with virtually no immune system. So it's a way to transfer the immunity that the mother's experienced, having all of her infections, all of her fevers and snake bites and bug bites and things she's eaten and allergies, and all those things can be transferred to the baby at the most susceptible time in life, which is at birth. You can just imagine a baby surviving being dropped in a snowstorm in a snowbank. This is the food that did it. It's the first food that starts off life in all mammals, and it's miraculous stuff. And for a sick adult, it has a phenomenal effect on adults as well. And that's why you see so many of the people that drink our fresh colostrum that we collect and sell after the baby's had their full, of course, recovering very rapidly from things like asthma and Crohn's disease and colitis and gastrointestinal problems and acne and all these immune-related kinds of things. Colostrum has a very strong effect on.
So you sell that in just quarts or gallons, or how does that work?
We sell our colostrum in pints. When it's the second day colostrum, it's actually pretty strong stuff. All the first day colostrum goes to the calf. The second day colostrum, third day colostrum, all the way out to fifth and sixth day colostrum are all considered colostrum under the law. So we're able to collect out to the end of the fifth day legally and call it all colostrum. As you approach the end of that fifth day, it's mostly milk, but it's not legally considered milk, it's still considered colostrum. So we collect that, we call that our super leche, or low concentration colostrum. We make our kefirs out of that and stuff like that. Different products.
And what kind of people buy that? Everybody, or?
People like you and me.
Yeah.
My wife used to suffer terrible allergies. She used to get a cortisone shot every year and had a hell of a time with allergies. And ever since we started drinking raw milk and drinking our raw colostrum, she's never had a problem with allergies. It's gone away completely. Wow. No seasonal allergies, nothing. So it's just one of those things you can just see Mother Nature working. We're eating the wrong things, you know. When you eat the right things, guess what? You got some serious problems starting to be resolved. You know, it's phenomenal to see how Mother Nature works.
Now tell me about the life of this little guy out here. What's going to happen now? Well, there she is, getting close to eating.
Yeah, he's actually having lunch right now. They'll stay together for a few days, and we'll separate the calves. We'll actually continue to grow them using milk, raw milk. And we do sell our bull calves. We sell some of our heifer calves as well. We only keep the crossbreeds, the ones that actually have the diversity to do well in our environment here. Generally speaking, whole uncrossbred cows, like just a pure strain Jersey or a pure strain Holstein, don't do as well as one that's crossbred. It's the whole idea of genetic diversity, because you're going to get the best traits of several lines of genetics versus just one trait from one line of genetics. And a crossbreed cow does very well. Her feet are better, she digests better, she lives longer, she has better resistance to bacteria, infections, disease processes. It just goes on. And she'll live longer. So we keep our crossbred calves. And you'll notice we have Jersey bulls, Holstein bulls, and we also have Ayrshire bulls. And they're all crossbreeding in the herd, trying to get this diversity of genetics, which is not a normal thing. On general dairies, you're always getting the seeming from just one line and trying to get a hybrid with more and more milk and disregarding other factors such as feed or digestive tract or something like that.
Which is overall health.
Overall health,
They're really looking just for milk production, right?
They're looking for one thing, and that's cheap, big volumes of milk, yeah. Actually, to be all fairness, they're looking for other things as well. But the major problem is it's a cog in a food chain. This cow is an organism that's part of a business plan where she needs to make a lot of milk and she needs to go make hamburger, one or the other. Where our cow, we're fine if she makes a lot less milk and lives a long, healthy life. That's fine. That's exactly what we're looking for, is less milk, long, healthy life, fewer problems. And the whole entire culture of the dairy, when you embrace the consumer. When you embrace the consumer, you now have a completely different culture. When you care about the consumer's feelings, you care about their health, you care about their nutrition, you care about everything that consumer's concerned about, you model your brand and you model your architecture of your product after that, the consumer's needs. When you're not connected to consumers, you find that you have very little concern for consumers' needs. You're more concerned about other things, like getting a nice big cream check from your creamery.
So now, typically, these conventional dairies, they just milk it and they send it off to some big creamery, and they don't do the whole process.
No. Very, very, very unusual. In fact, California, I can think of no dairies that have their own creamery. The only one. There may be one other producer's dairy here in Fresno that has one, but
so they're not connected to the food chain really.
No.
They just dump it into a big vat and they're done with it.
they're done with it, and they're separated from the concerns of the consumer, and therefore there's no reason to listen to consumer complaint. They're not connected. They don't have an email. They don't have a website. They have no reason to have any association with the consumer whatsoever. This is the milking environment where the cows walk in and they're milked here, and they exit out in the field. It's very basic.
Oh, that's really interesting. So now they walk up a ramp.
They walk up a ramp, come up here, and their butts are towards us, and their udders are here, and the milkers put the machines on, prep them first, and put the machines on, and then they exit and go back in the pasture.
What time do they milk them?
They milk about 6 o'clock in the evening, 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
The milk is immediately flash chilled in our flash chiller, which is at the other side of this wall, which I could show you. And that really is an important part of the holding process.
So it goes into the big, I guess, processors, right? I mean, not a processor, but it goes into a big.
The milk comes out of the cow and down this line right here through a filter.
Okay.
And so it catches any hair or flies or any weird thing that might be in the milk.
Right.
And then through the filter it goes in, it's at 99 degrees here, because that's the body temperature of the cow, 98 to 100 degrees right here. So it's nice and warm. Goes through our chiller, and the chiller is basically glycol, chilled glycol from 2 Bico chillers at the other end of this thing, which puts glycol down here on these plates at about 24 degrees, 25 degrees. So it's very cold. So that 99 degree milk goes against plates, stainless steel plates that are in the low 20s, 25 degrees.
Right.
So it immediately sucks all the temperature out of the milk, dropping it down to 30 degrees or 35 degrees. And then that temperature is recorded on our temperature charts. And the milk then exits into our transport tanks that goes to our creamery.
And you have a transport tank right here. I mean,
Yeah, well, it's gone now.
When you hook it up, it just drives up?
It comes down every time we milk. We take it up, take 600 or 700 gallons of milk up to the creamery, where we store it, bottle it, separate it, do whatever we're going to do.
Wow.
So this is kind of a magical room here. One of the key things is to make sure you have plenty of hot water.
And what's that for?
We have a saying here at Organic Pastures Dairy: keep clean, clean, green, green, hot, hot, and cold, cold. If you can do those 4 things magically, green, green means the pastures should stay green. Your cows should always be going someplace green. That means irrigate, keep things green, move them to someplace green. Clean, clean. If something's supposed to be clean, make sure it's clean every time, so you're not re-inoculating something with bacteria. Hot, hot. Hot water is really important in terms of keeping your bacteria counts low and keeping things clean. So if your hot water is supposed to be hot, let's make sure it's hot. Let's not make sure it's cold this morning and hot tonight. It's got to be hot every time. And then cold, cold, let's make sure that when we chill, it's actually chilled and it's down to the temperatures. It's just kind of a saying we have that kind of reminds us to the critical control points, the essential parts of what make our products strong.
And the hot water is used where?
It flushes all the lines
okay.
to clean out all the milk after each milking.
Okay,
So we have about 185 degree temperature water.
Clean out all your receptacles?
Yeah, the milk, all the systems.
Anything that's handled, yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Okay, neat. And then your truck takes it to the creamery, which is right down here on your property.
Exactly.
Huh.
And this milk barn is never the same place. Last week it was up by the road, so it's always moving around all the time. Milking milk.
To get
taking
close
them
to the
out.
cows.
Yeah. So the cows don't have to walk very far from where they should be, which is in the cleanest, greenest environment we have.
Oh, that's right. So instead of having the cow, because you have herding the cows that's a big deal.
Well, cows, the more cow walks, the less energy they have to make milk. The more they tear up the ground. The biggest challenge the big dairy has is getting the cow from point A to point B without destroying the cow's feet or some other surface in between. So you'll see these big dairy herds have very well-engineered walkways. They actually have rubber mats, and the cows walk back and forth the same place. Well, we don't have any places where cows walk ever, because we're always moving away, so that they always have a green place to walk on. They don't actually have a pathway or some kind of a strange route they've got to go down. Yeah.
Wow. Neat.
It's very natural.
So they say that sunshine is good for humans. I guess it's good for cows too, right?
Vitamin D, absolutely. And it's something that not all cows get to experience, because they're put into shaded confinement facilities, and sometimes they don't get a lot. Watch out for the minefield there. But these cows are basically, when they're laying down, they use less energy, and they're chewing their cud. It's always a very good sign of milk production. So they're laying down, chewing their cud, relaxing, You know, they only put out about 45 to 50 pounds of milk a day. On a conventional herd, you'll see 80 to 120 pounds of milk a day. So a completely different kind of expectation for the cow, but also different nutrition for the cow and different environment for the cow.
So now you measure milk by the pound.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that.
There's 8.6 pounds per gallon. So you're talking about 5-6 gallons per day, someplace in there. More when they're first fresh and less when they're not, you know, later in the cycle. But yeah, it's almost like these larger dairies are operated on a protocol, and it's by design. They have to. That if the cow doesn't produce a certain amount of milk, they're gone.
Well, it is a business. You know, we have to.
It's a business. It is a business, absolutely, and a very scientifically advanced business in terms of how the universities teach the young dairymen to operate, and it's all computer-based. And our system it uses Mother Nature's science more than anything else, because although it's not random, there is a lot of free choice, and there's a lot of Mother Nature's design going on that drives what we do. And it actually drives the value of our milk, because the milk, the more you let Mother Nature's design manage things, the more the milk value has higher value.
To the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these cows are just hanging out right now, just being comfortable, huh?
Yep, that's all they're doing. That's basically resting and relaxing. This one out here is kind of friendly. She's fun.
Now, I know you may think I'm kind of crazy because I haven't seen a cow in a long time, but, you know, I mean, you know.
This is Darlna here. She's kind of a pet cow. She'll let you scratch her head.
Which one's this?
Darlna.
Oh, right there?
The big red one. Let me walk up to her first here and see. Hey, baby, what are you doing, huh? You want to get your head scratched? Yeah, good girl. Good girl. Yeah. Want to scratch that? Yeah, 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 yeah. She thinks I'm a fence post or something. Cows generally are not real affectionate. They generally don't get up close to you. She's one that's somebody's 4-H project, I swear.
Oh, yeah?
She's just a
well, you know,
big love.
These guys are quicker than most people think too, aren't they? They can take a little step, pretty quick step, can't they?
Yeah, especially the bulls. Anyway, yeah, she's a fun one. She came off the truck. We bought her out of Oregon about a year and a half ago. She came off the truck, came right up to me, and started licking on me.
Oh yeah?
She goes, "Yeah, I want to be your buddy."
Well, so how do you get cows then? I guess now you're raising your own.
We raise our own,
right?
but we also buy some from organic dairies up in Oregon, where we do find some dairies that are on pasture, because we only buy cows that come from pastures.
So you look for them on pasture?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because they're going to have, they're going to already be pathogen free in terms of their milk production. You get a cow that comes out of a really big confinement facility or factory farm, even though they might be organic, they're not going to be pathogen free. They're going to have milk problems with their E. coli and salmonella and things like that in the milk.
And that'll affect all the milk you do.
Oh yeah, it cross-contaminates and everything else. Yeah, actually we could take a cow from that environment, and after a 6-month period on this, we'll actually convert her back to where she's supposed to be.
Well, you'd have to keep them separate.
Yeah, it's a pain in the rear. So why not just start with au natural and leave it alone, you know? And we're growing our own replacements, so we just bring our own back, put them back in our own herd. And they're fun animals. I mean, they're very gregarious and they're curious. I mean, you know, they like to hang out and say hi because it's boring out here. Yeah. I mean, you think about it. We're the only exciting thing going on. You got these funky humans coming to see them, you know. These water tanks are really important, that you have adequate water supply for the cows so they don't compete. And that's why you have these really long water feeders. Longer than most dairies. We do a lot of extra water availability for our cows. We don't want them to suffer any heat, so we have tons of space here for them to actually get to the water. And they got plenty of it, nice and fresh.
Yeah, you think that's just something that's pretty basic, huh?
Yeah, it's important. Really important. Yep.
So where are these guys headed next? They go next door, you say?
Yeah, we'll go up to the creamery and we'll show you where the milk is delivered up to the creamery, and we'll show you our packaging and where we're making our kefir,
yeah,
which is a very exciting new product, and show you where we ship our products internationally, and domestically we ship all over the United States.
Where does this milk go from here? Does it end up in Southern California? Does it end up in Northern California, or all over?
This milk will end up all over. It's depending on which plant it goes to, it'll become a cheese, it'll become a milk, it'll become butter, it'll become cream, it'll become cottage cheese, yogurt, cultured dairy products like smoothies or yogurts, any number of things. Any number of things. Our dairy is quite the anomaly, and you can kind of see that the way we started was to be an organic dairy selling to Organic Valley, but evolved rapidly into an organic dairy that was making raw dairy products under our own brand directly to consumers.
Right.
And our funding ran out right after that evolution occurred, so everything we built after the Organic Valley contract was done on a shoestring. So you see, everything we've done has actually been self-made, but all approved by CDFA and the dairy regulators. And we're getting into a phase now where we're investing in a brand new creamery and a brand new milk barn and expanding. And that, in fact, that gentleman I was meeting with this morning was a very late stage development that's going on from some European investors, some property near us here that have been courting us for 3 years and are very interested in what we're doing because of the nutrition value of our product and the organic and the conservation types of land stewardship, because in Europe they're very much into land stewardship, and they want to take some of their ground that they have into their control and become a satellite dairy for us, and have us manage that to expand and actually invest dollars in our company so that we can actually build a brand new creamery to handle a bigger part of California. So it's about partnering, it's about co-venturing, and it's a very exciting time to be doing what we're doing.
Is the country now ready for raw?
No.
Really?
No. Europe is ready for raw. Europe is actually leading us substantially on cultured dairy products. This country is it's barely on the radar screen.
Well, there's some cheeses they can't even bring to the country, right?
Right. They're
Crazy?
blocked.
Yeah.
They're blocked. It's the French deal, you know, it's that whole thing.
And they're supposed to be really good.
Oh yeah, they're phenomenal. It's a political thing, not a food safety thing. I'm of the opinion that the people are ready for raw. The country and the political infrastructure, the USDA and the FDA, are absolutely anti-raw. So those that regulate us and those that are the corporate managers of our market system don't want the concept because it doesn't. Raw is not good for corporate America. Raw is a short shelf life.
Yeah, you can't store and package and
preserve it, so on and so forth.
Right.
And it's not a predictable product. It's biodiverse, right? Well, you know, corporate America likes to have very stable, long shelf life, easy to distribute, low value added products.
All taste the same.
Yeah. Well, raw is a people's product.
Right.
It's a farmer's product. Farmer and people get together. High value added, short shelf life. It's a different branding concept. And so we really run against the grain of that entire paradigm completely. This is our creamery. It's actually got an interesting story. We built that part of our creamery in 90 days. When the droves came wanting our raw milk back in 2001, we decided rapidly to get into the raw milk production. We took a reefer van and we split. Part of it was the cold storage and part of it was bottling. And we got into it right away. In 90 days, we were up and going as a creamery.
So what's the definition of a creamery?
Well, a creamery is where milk is brought from the dairy and it's processed into an end product. That's what a creamery is. You can make any number of things at a creamery. Creameries specialize in things like one creamery may make cottage cheese, another one may make separate milk into skim milk and cream. Another, there's different things you can do in a creamery. Most conventional creameries pasteurize and homogenize and standardize. That's what they do. We don't pasteurize, and we don't homogenize, and we don't standardize. What we do is we bring the milk in, we bottle, and that's it. Or we bring the milk in and we separate the cream from the milk, so you have skim milk and you have cream. That may be a process. We make butter. Very basic processes here, but nothing that takes the milk up to any temperature. It's always kept at low temperature, so it's completely biodiverse and enzyme rich at all times. Let's go take you and show you what we're making kefir.
Okay.
We actually have a 450-gallon vat, which is being completed today over at our apples. Maybe we can drive over there and take a look at it. That vat's going in here for our kefir culturing, and we'll add in our milk, and then we'll add in the kefir culture, and then that sits for about 70 degrees for 2.5 days, and then becomes fully cultured milk. And then we'll do we add our berries, and we add our bananas, and we add our honey, our raw unheated honey, in a blender, and we actually have our kefir blend at that point. Let's move these out of here. This is our Our starter vat, we actually have, this is a very small vat right here. Our big vat's 450 gallons, and we've been making our first batches of kefir in this vat right here. And kefir is about as easy as it gets to make.
What do you do to it?
You simply put the milk in, you let it sit at room temperature, which is room temperature right here, about 75, 80 degrees. You add your kefir grains into it, and you leave it. You just kefir grains, and you're going to see what kefir grains are in a little while here, because we actually have them. We're going to separate them out of their culture, and you'll see them, and we'll see them inoculate in, and then you'll see what, actually you'll have a sample of what the kefir grains will look like when it's complete. So you get the whole picture. It's going to be really cool.
What's it, what does kefir taste like? I mean, what is it like? Is it like a yogurt?
It's like
or
a
is
yogurt.
It, but it's more liquid, right?
It's more of a smoothie than a yogurt, but it's a flowable, cultured yogurt.
And it has all the benefits of raw milk?
Completely.
And even more because it has more culture in it?
It has very low lactose, very low sugar, because the lactobacillus bacteria has eaten all the sugar. So the pH is dropped because the lactobacillus bacteria has created lactic acid, so it's dropped the pH a little bit. So it has a little bit of a bite. It's got a little bit of a tang to it. Lactose, the sugar is low. It has tremendously high bacteria counts, which is really, really good for your immune system. It's completely enzyme rich, very flavorful. It's the most popular drink in Russia. Kefir, yeah. And it goes back to a couple thousand years ago, and it's biblical in terms of where the kefir grains actually came from. Nobody really knows, but it's a culture that has yeast and bacterium and diversity of all those together. They grow kind of like a little, they look like cottage cheese or like grains. Well, you'll see them. I'll show them to you.
Great.
Yeah, they're really cool. So, okay. The reason I keep this room warm and I haven't clipped on the air conditioner is because I've wanted to grow my kefir grains today. This is kefir, and when removed from the vat, this is what we have, and I'll show you. This is the kefir grains in an inoculum of milk. And you can kind of see them there. See how they're kind of...
Yeah, looks kind of like a cottage cheese, like you said, huh?
Yeah, but let me show you here. What I have here is a sample of our kefir grains, which is the mother culture, which we start our kefir products with. And you can kind of see how it's turned into kind of a cheese, or kind of well, it's kind of a yogurt.
Yeah.
Kind of a...
Boy, that's really neat.
Wonderful, yeah. And this has been growing for a couple days now. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this over, and we're going to strain out the grains, and we're going to inoculate a vat of 25 gallons to make a test batch for this next weekend. We'll be sending down to the farmers markets in LA. After this next weekend, we'll actually be inoculating a couple hundred gallons per time in a larger vat for commercial production. So you're seeing kind of an interesting story here. Right before we're getting ready to do our kefir commercially, we're doing it just on a sample basis, and you're going to see this. You're going to see the story unfold right before your eyes. And this is Alex. He's our cheesemaker. So,
Hello, Alex.
Hi. Okay, we're going to separate the grains right now. I've already washed my hands, and we're all good to go there. So we're going to separate the grains right now. And you can kind of see. Can you see in the pot here? Okay, if you want to take a look at something, I'll show you. This is a kefir grain right here. That is a living organism. That is what a kefir grain, a very healthy, good-looking kefir grain looks like right there.
How many did you start with? How big was it when you started?
We started with about that much right there.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Started about that much, and then they grew to, this whole thing is about 90% kefir grain right now. See all these kefir grains? They look grainy. Look like kind of like tapioca or oatmeal maybe.
Right, and how long does it take to do that?
This took us about 4 months, 90 days to do this. 90 days, 3 months. And there's some more, and it's all done. Alex, do you have that spatula at all?
Yeah.
Make sure I...
So you can then reuse these grains, huh?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole idea. Is every time you make a batch, you reuse it. So these grains have been around for a long, long time. These come from the Caucasus in Russia, and they claim that they're 1,000 years old.
Wow.
So... okay, now you have pure kefir grains. Those are grains right there. And what you have in the bottom is the kefir.
That's amazing.
This is the kefir, and that's the kefir grains. These look really good, Alex. These grains look great. I want to make sure we, let's do this. We're going to wash this out with, okay. Make sure we catch all of our grains here. Yeah, all the grains are out of there. They're all good to go.
So you don't want to miss any, right?
Yeah, we want to get them all. We don't want to miss any. And what we're going to do is we always inoculate just a little bit from our old batch to our new batch. So we're going to take maybe a cup of just a little bit there of the old batch, and then we're going to add in the kefir grains into our new batch. But I like to do it this way. We take the kefir grains and make a nice big mess. And we've got kefir grains here. And I'll take the milk, a little bit of milk here, and I'll stir it around. Get them good and mixed around good. This milk's still a little on the cool side, so we'll need to, and we'll mix that around like that. We'll stir it up. Stir it around a little bit.
So now you just pour the kefir grains right into the milk, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead, deep, real deep in there, just move it around. Yeah, right into the milk, and that should be good, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover this with a blanket. And we have a little heater down here to the side. And that heater is going to actually keep that warm at room temperature and let it sit there. Is this heater's on?
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll just let that sit. It's done.
For how long?
2 days. 2 days. And the next time we see that, in a day or so, it'll be solid. It'll have the same consistency that we saw earlier. And we let it continue to culture until it's completely solid. And it does the same thing that this did.
And you separate the grains again?
Separate the grains again, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We've actually been making 25-gallon vats for the last month and a half or so, and these grains that we had were actually pretty highly concentrated. We actually were kind of starving them a little bit by having them such a small batch of milk, because they'll consume all the lactose very quickly. You want to check temp? What we're at there? I don't want to put any more hot water in there. I'm good. I'm good with what we got. We'll just let it get warm. It's probably around 60, I would imagine. But that's the way it's done. And if you think about it, historically, it makes so much sense because none of this requires any refrigeration.
Right.
This is people's food. Because you can take the kefir and you can take it from one batch to the next, all at room temperature, and it would have indefinite shelf life. You know, you could take it out several weeks if you wanted, no big deal. You could drink it at any point. You can make it into a cheese if you wanted by separating the curds and whey. You could drink the whey. It's very much a people's food, and it's very enzyme-rich and biologically diverse.
64.
Perfect. Just leave it alone. It'll get up to 75 here pretty soon with that heater going. Leave her be. I'd take off the hot water line, the hose, just so nobody makes any mistakes and accidentally pasteurizes it. We don't want that. And then what I would do here is I would pour this kefir into a container over there and put it in the cold storage. All right? Very good. Thanks, Alex. This is our cheese plant. And this is what we were making our kefir before. We don't make our kefir anymore here because the kefir has a different culture, a different bacterium than our cheeses do. So we keep them separate. And one is a federally inspected plant. One is a California dietary supplement plant. So we have two different plant facilities permits for each of these things. Kind of interesting. This is our cheese room. And again, it's got this special coating on the floor to be FDA approved. It's all clean. It's got exhaust air going through it, so it's nice and clean. And this is our 500-gallon cheese vat right here. And they made cheese yesterday. In fact, the cheese is still in the press. You kind of see the cheese here in the press right here. This is raw cheese being pressed.
Well, how about that?
And they're in the presses, yeah.
So you just press it by...
Well, the milk was in the cheese vat, coagulated, separated from curds and whey. We took off the whey. We had curds left. The curd was then worked and had some salt put into it and worked by hand and by cutting until it was shredded in little pieces like this. And then it was put into the press to actually smash it all together. In fact, they've been cutting some cheese this morning. Let me take you in the cold storage here and show you our cheese reserves. This is only 55-degree temperature. It's actually a moderate temperature, not a deep freeze. And we're holding cheese in here. This is our cut and wrap cheese ready for market, which is our truly raw. Never been above 105 degrees. Actually, never been above 100 degrees. But we put 105 just to make sure. And this is lightly salted.
Wow.
Yeah. We hold. We actually got our raw unheated honey in here for making our kefir. We keep it in here.
And that's the cheddar right there.
This is the cheddar being held right now, prior to being cut.
So big blocks like that are just pressed together, and then you cut them.
Yeah. Well, these blocks come out of that press. And then we shrink wrap them, and we cut them, put them back into these small blocks here.
Right.
So that's the process.
Cheese.
Cheese, yeah. This is whey, by the way. By the way. There's got to be a better way. Go my way.
That's his way, and you sell that too, right?
This is whey, yes. And it was taken out of the cheese vat yesterday. Our friend Sylvester Stallone likes this stuff. Okay, we'll take you in the creamery now, show you the creamery. This is our transport tank here, which brings up 600 to 700 gallons every milking, which we put into our large holding tanks or directly into the creamery straight. The door is a little hard, so they want it to slam closed. So this is our bottling plant, and we bottle our milk here. We also do cream separation here and butter making here. This is where we hand fill our butter boxes or butter containers. And the cold storage is in here.
This is where you store it and they pick it up and it goes from here, huh?
This is sitting in the 30-degree temperature range. And well, we've got some colostrum today. It's fresh raw colostrum. We have some super leche, I believe, here.
Super leche.
That's the raw colostrum. Yeah, we also have some chocolate leche sitting up here. That's non-labeled. And there's some whey as well. This came off the cheese vat. Some whey. We have some cream here. This is all butter. It's all raw butter.
And how's that taste?
Delicious. Have you ever had any?
No.
Oh my God.
I'll take one home.
Yeah, you take one home. It's got a nice yellow look to it. That's not because of food coloring or annatto. That's because the cows are on a green grass pasture.
Really?
Yeah. The chlorophyll, when a cow eats green grass, makes a yellow coloring in butterfat. You don't see that in conventionally produced milk. They have a more of a white butterfat. It's a different kind of butterfat. So we got about 1,000 pounds of butter right here. Wow. That's worth about $12,000. Wow. Yeah. We got room to expand. We're actually expanding back in here, additional cold storage. And then our trucks back up here, this is where we load our trucks. We actually have some kefir reserves right here. We've made already. Actually, there's a little separation going on, but you just mix it back together and you're fine. This is previously cultured kefir. So that's it.
Wow.
This is our silo room here.
Okay, so that's the same thing they had on the other side.
On the outside, yeah. So we hold our skim milk. This we hold our whole milk is in here. The whole milk is actually empty right now. So we used it all up. That's this tank right here, yeah.
What's this guy?
This is actually one that's not being utilized right now. It's actually in a spare tank. We thought we were going to have enough milk to put it in the tank, but we use it before it gets there. So, you know, it's one of those guesstimations that we're a little off.
Yeah,
and that's just the way it is.
Because it's going out the door.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. It's most exciting to me to see people appreciating it in changes in their own bodies. When they've got a disease process going on, and then they drink the food from this process, this food from this environment, and come back with this dramatic exclamation, wow, I'm feeling better, I feel great, what's going on? That stuff's magical. I'm saying it's not really magical. You're just eating what you're supposed to be eating, you know? And people are rejoicing in the food that comes from this place. That's what really makes me most happy. Nothing like seeing a mom saying, you know what, I don't have my kid on asthma inhalers anymore, you know?
Right, and that's a huge thing in California.
It's massive.
I mean, more so than I ever remember when I was a kid.
It's interesting to note a couple of things about that. I'll tell you, in India, there was a study done in Austria by a university, and they found that children that were raised in the country that drank raw milk had a prevalence of about 1% asthma, less than 1%, 1%. Children in the city that did not have, quote, farm milk had a 13% asthma incidence.
How about that?
The same exact numbers in California. Children in the city that are not on raw farm milk are 13%. It's an international phenomenon. It's not something that's particularly bioregional.
Right. But I guess I just never noticed when I was a kid how many people, California, I coach a lot of sports.
Sure.
I'm coaching, basketball and football and all that stuff with my kids. And, they have to all fill out the questionnaire, and I look at them, and they're all, half these kids have asthma. And I'm thinking, what? How can that be?
I personally feel that there's many factors that play a role in this, but I personally feel that one of the greatest factors that's playing a role here is the lack of biodiversity in the diet. When you start eating all dead food, every bit of your food is dead. Preserved food, extra long shelf life food, canned foods that are enzyme depleted entirely and completely lack of any kind of biodiversity, your immune system starts to suffer grotesquely. 70% of your immune system's strength comes from the biodiversity in your intestine. Well, if your intestines only have a certain number of bacteria in them, it's only maybe just a few kinds of classes of bacteria, you're going to have a really tough time fighting off disease processes and keeping your immune system in strong health. And when you get somebody who eats a biodiversity, you got 60 or 70 different kinds of bacteria, they're living, and antibodies and enzymes and whole foods getting to your intestine, guess what? Your immune system is going to be entirely different. And it's also very, very interesting to note that pasteurized, especially ultra high temperature pasteurized and regular HT pasteurized, pasteurized dairy products trigger a histamine reaction, which actually triggers, obviously, asthma reaction.
Is that because of all the dead bacteria there?
Exactly. Well, how do you kill a bacterium? You kill a bacterium by breaking its lysosomal membranes. Its membranes open up. Its cell bodies open up. They lyse, okay? You do that with heat. But when they lyse, guess what's coming out?
All the insides.
The insides coming out, those are the histamines. Those are the foreign proteins that are no longer encapsulated in this membrane. They're now outside of where they're supposed to be. They're ectoplasmic. They're outside.
Wow.
And they get in the circulatory system. They go around. They cause havoc because their histamines are extremely small. They're out of place in the body. The body doesn't understand them because they're supposed to be inside of a cell. And now they're out, triggering all kinds of problems like itchy eyes, runny noses, rashes, all kinds of problems. In worst case scenario, anaphylactic shock. But I mean, for the most part, it triggers things like asthma reactions,
Right.
allergies, and things like that. Raw dairy products do not cause that because all the bacteria are living, fully encapsulated, no histamines out running around doing anything crazy. So you have the value of recognizable bacteria that your body can recognize and have an immune response to and build its immune system without the triggering responses of histamines. So processing actually triggers an entire a whole issue, a whole unraveling of our immune system response with histamines. And that doesn't happen with raw dairy products at all. In fact, raw dairy products actually the cure for that.
Yes.
It's diabolically extreme, you know, it's amazing.
So where are we at now? This is a conventional dairy.
This is a conventional dairy, and it's antibiotics, lots of grain, all concrete floors, man-managed. You got shades here. This is where the cows give birth to their calves. You can see a calf was born over there. You can see a little calf way over there. There's a little calf that's born on the sawdust over there. They're constantly changing out the bedding here so that the bedding stays nice and clean. This one's kind of got a little manure. That one's got bedding. Hey there, baby. And so, you know, they've got a big milk barn there. We'll take you over there and show you the milk barn in a minute. Yeah. Let's go show you the rest of the feeding operation.
Yeah.
Now these cows are very young. You'll notice that the cows are standing on a rubber mat right here.
Right.
This rubber mat. And they choose to stand on the rubber mat more than any other place because it doesn't hurt their feet. The concrete can hurt their feet. So it's a very good husbandry. This dairyman's doing an excellent job of creating an environment that's fairly conducive to the cow because without it, they'd be in a lot of pain.
So they just got a lot of weight just standing there, and I
Yeah.
guess that hurts, huh?
Well, yeah, the hoof is a fairly soft hoof, especially when they're fed as much grain as they are. Nutritionally, their feet don't do real well.
Oh, I see.
And when you're breeding so much to have a good udder and create a lot of milk, yeah, what are you saying, babe? Then you disregard other values like feet. And you're not on a soft environment like grass.
Or dirt, yeah.
Or dirt, which is very easy. They're always on concrete because you have to be able to wash it. This is where manure water comes out and sprays out. I don't know when it's going to spray out next, but it'll come out and it'll wash all this manure down to the washed pond. So it's a naturally fletching kind of environment. You'll also notice that in this feed you'll have cottonseed right there.
Right.
You'll see corn. You'll see alfalfa, and you'll see silage. This is and you also see some other things in there which I can't recognize. But it's semi-fermented. You can smell it. And it has a very high level of protein and carbohydrates, which is going to produce a lot of milk for it's going to produce a lot of energy for that cow. And when the cow doesn't have to walk very far to lay down, she's just going to simply go and lay down in some processed manure that they've put in for her, which is a bed.
Oh,
bedding
that's what that is back there.
That's a bedding, yeah. She'll head in first, and she'll crowd in, and this is the place where she'll lay down.
So they just have these little pens. They just
Yeah.
lay next to you.
Right. It's called a freestall. And the cows will walk in and lay down. That's where they'll sleep. And they'll get up and eat here and go back and sleep there. And they can access out into that free area out there, which is basically a big pile of manure.
But there's nothing out there.
Nothing out there. There's not a blade of grass anywhere near here.
Wow.
Not a blade of grass. If there's a blade of grass, it's a freak of nature.
So now they feed these guys, or these girls, should I say, just by dumping this stuff on the
Right.
concrete.
They come in with what's called a TMR, or total mixed ration, that has a veterinarian or a nutritionist prescribed combination of things for that cow to put optimal production out. And this is also the environment in which they're going to get artificially bred. They'll have the artificial inseminator come in and check them for pregnancy and artificially breed them. They won't have a bull in here. It's an artificial environment. But this is standard. This is the highest standard of factory farms anywhere in the United States. It's this kind of environment right here.
And I mean, this is huge. Like, it just goes
It's
down there for like 100 yards.
Oh yeah, you've got 1,000 cows per each one of these things. You got several thousand cows in here.
And do they get out of here at all? Or
Well, they go up to the milk barn, which we'll visit in a minute, and they milk them 2 or 3 times a day, and then they walk back to this environment. So it's very much a machine in terms of how they're being managed.
So they feed them, milk them, and feed them.
Yep, these cows are basically eating and milking machines is what they are.
And then over here is where they're supposed to be sleeping or getting comfortable.
Right, and you'll see a few laying down. You might be able to see 1 or 2. There's one right there laying down, yeah. And you notice that her tail hangs over that rib there, where it's being washed out, and it's
Right.
down the gutter. Yeah.
It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And so their udders are all nasty and dirty and
Yeah.
not real natural, huh?
It's good stuff.
Wow.
I'll take you around and show you the manure ponds. Then we'll go up to the milk barn. This is a huge lagoon, dairy wastewater lagoon, and it will carry all the wastewater from that dairy, and they've got a couple of them.
When you said these are like 60, 50
They can be 50 to 60 feet deep, 3 times deeper than what's apparent here, actually 3 times, and it holds just millions of gallons of water, of course.
And it's pretty nasty stuff, I guess. What?
Well, it's urea, it's nitrogen, it's the solid waste from the cows. It's going to be used as irrigation water. In fact, you can see some of the water over here. Maybe they'd be pumping it and using it for fertility, which is actually a good thing because it's actually biologically very rich for returning the nutrients back to the soils on the ground. You'll notice the water coming out from that irrigation, that pipe over there. You can kind of see it boiling out. It's not clear water. The water is brown water.
Way over there, yeah.
Yeah, that water is partly coming from partly coming from this waste lagoon. That's why it's brown. It's very nutrient rich, filled with nitrogen and urea, so it's going to bring back a lot of fertility to the soil.
And they're going to grow their feed here, I guess.
Exactly. So you can kind of see the life cycle going on here. It's a little different than ours. On our dairy, we didn't move literally 1 stitch of dirt, 1 ounce of dirt to start our dairy. Here they moved millions of cubic feet. This dairy is forever a dairy. It's never can be used for any other purpose unless you spend $1 million to tear it all down and do something else. Our dairy can be used for any number of things without any conversion. You can farm it, you can organically farm it, you can do whatever you want with it because you haven't actually disturbed the natural state of affairs in the ground. Among dairies, this guy's got bragging rights. He's very well managed. It's all sterilized. You know, it's Roundup's been sprayed around everything. There's nothing green here.
Right.
It's all been pretty much sterilized with a herbicide.
Smells pretty heavy.
It's pretty ripe, yeah. You can see how the water's coming out there. It's also got cleansers. It's also got sterilants coming from the milking operation as well. So you've got a combination of good and bad going on there. And you can see that they're drying out fertilizers or manures here from their separation operation, which they've got going on here. This is where the water, the whole wastewater comes in, and they'll drag it out with a scraper to separate it into solids versus it's a wastewater separation plant is what this is. And the water they'll use to irrigate and the solids they'll use to fertilize, or they'll put it back into bedding.
And so, yeah, you can see that's where they just drag up that ramp.
Exactly, and it separates the water as they do so.
Then what are they growing? What are they feeding these cows?
Well, they're feeding alfalfa. Alfalfa is one of the mainstays.
Right.
Alfalfa and corn are the 2 major things being fed to these cows right now.
And what's right or wrong about that?
Nothing. It's the way it is. I mean, they don't have a lot of diversity in terms of cow having the choice because they make the choice for the cow.
Right.
And so, you know, it is what it is. I mean, this is a factory farm. You can see the 3 rubber mats there. This has been flushed recently, so you can see this fairly clean. You see the rubber mats where the cows would stand. And you notice the cows pretty much are standing on them over there. That's where they choose to stand because it's better for their feet.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of an interesting picture right here. You notice the cows, there's only virtually no feet. All the feet are standing on the rubber.
Right. That's
more
strange.
comfortable.
Let me see here real quick. Hold on. Yeah, he just took it. There's one here taking a look at it.
She's checking us out.
But it's interesting. They just put it there and then they just hose this thing down.
But it's washed with a...
Washed automatically.
Yeah, there's a big torrent of water that comes down and flushes this entire thing out to the lagoon.
What do the cows think about that?
I go surfing, I guess.
Like the artificial wave.
Yeah.
So there's cows walking back. Are they coming back to the...
They're coming back from the milk barn, which we're going to go up and see right now.
Do they walk themselves back, or do they...
Yeah. Not much of a choice. It's all confinement, so they just have one direction to go home. They know that they're creatures of habit. They do what they do every day.
And this is one of the, say, mid-sized operation or a large?
I would say this is a larger operation, 3,000 cow dairy. Although there are dairies up to 15 to 20,000 cows now. The dairies in this area between 3,000 and 5,000 cows. That's the general. There's some smaller and some larger, but generally speaking, 3,000 to 5,000 is what we've got around us. And we're only 300. So. But we're the only ones that have our own creamery and our own milk production that's going into our own bottling plant. So.
And again, just explain that cycle to us now. So this guy, he's got all his cows.
Yep.
Feeds them, milks them. Then what happens to his milk?
Twice a day, a big milk truck comes by and takes 7,000 gallons of milk off to a creamery, where that milk is commingled with other people's milk, and they do all kinds of products, yogurt, and cottage cheese, and it's all ultra pasteurized or pasteurized and homogenized.
And the creameries are like Lucerne, I guess. That's the creamery.
It would be DFA or Challenge creameries. We'll take you in here and show you the inside of this thing, which is all very state of the art. State of the art here.
So this is pretty high tech.
Oh yeah, they've got 2 barns right next to each other, and they'll milk 7,500 cows at a time.
So what are they doing?
They're putting machines on cows right now, and they've already prepared the teats. They're putting machines on. See the milk here? But this guy's really quick. He's good. He's done it a couple times.
15 years.
15 years, wow.
Well, my 16.
Wow.
He's done it for 25.
Wow. How many cows you milking around here? About 3,000?
No, not yet. I don't think
2,500?
so. Probably.
Yeah. 27.
So how long are they milking for?
Well, they'll be done in 5-7 minutes. 10 minutes?
Yeah.
12 minutes?
12 minutes.
Yeah.
Depends on the cow.
Yeah, yeah.
That one's going to take longer. She's a bigger cow.
Yeah, yeah. You're a little anxious.
Well, they got them in there, so I guess that's how you have to do it, right? So they don't move too much.
Yeah, she's a little anxious right now. Let's go look at the other side. And you feel the milk's coming in here from the cows into the receiving tank and then pumped into the big tank. It's the exact same thing again. You got a lot of cows being milked in the same place.
Quite an operation.
Oh yeah. And the milk truck just got here. You can see the milk tanks here. They're about 6,000 to 7,000 gallons each one.
The truck picks it up.
Yeah, one truck will pick up one tank. And you see this is kind of the infrastructure here. We got compressors and chillers and huge energy banks and all kinds of things to keep it all going. The only part of the tank is actually exposed is that alcove on the other side. All this is the back side of it.
How much milk is in one of these tanks?
That's about 6,500 to 7,000 gallons, that capacity of that tank right there. They size the milk tanks for the size of the milk truck. So this will be 7,000 gallon milk tank. They'll take it up to 6,000 gallons, and one truck will go with one tank.
Let's start with a little bit about yourself and about the history of this operation. And I know you said to me you're, 5 years old? Tell us how it started.
Yeah.
You're 6 years old?
This farming operation, Organic Pastures Dairy, had its roots in a 5th generation farming operation that started back in the 40s from my grandparents, who were school teachers in San Francisco. And during the Depression in the 20s, 30s, of course, they saved their $1 a day and bought some land down in Fresno, across the street from Fresno State University, and it became worth a fortune in the 60s, and they transferred that value into buying 1,000 acres out here. And this ground, this 600 acres of organic ground here, is part of that holding. So part of a 5th generation farming operation, of which my son and daughter are very actively involved in. And we started the dairy part of this operation in 1999 with the development of our mobile milk barn and the conversion of all the pastures and everything to organic certification in the early 90s. And began shipping our milk to Organic Valley for ultra-high temperature pasteurization and homogenization and all the other things that happen at conventional processing plants in 2000. And what was interesting was literally within 2 weeks of starting to ship our milk off for processing with Organic Valley, we had people turning up here in the Suburbans with ice chests from LA saying, well, we got word that you guys are producing organic milk from grass-fed cows, and we want to buy your milk. And I thought they were kind of crazy at first. I didn't realize. And they took us quickly to task and educated us rapidly about raw milk, and then I became a voracious student on the subject. And within 6 months, we were processing and bottling our own raw milk here and shipping off a great deal of our product, and we left the Organic Valley Cooperative. So it was very much in and out of the organic deal and more into the raw thing within just a few months of starting our operation.
Describe to me organic, what it means to be organic,
Sure.
and perhaps what organic means from a natural standpoint, as well as what organic means to the government.
Absolutely. Well, the Rodales began, well, organics is basically Mother Nature's blueprint for growing things on planet Earth, okay? And that's something that goes back through the millennia. That's not a new man-made concept. Organic is a word man came up with to describe in detail what you do to be able to do those things. But the Rodales came up with this concept in the 50s and 60s in their gardening magazine, and it was all about composting. And organics really means biodiversity, soil, whole, unprocessed, from the earth foods. And you know, to quote Earl Butz, who was the Undersecretary of Agriculture for Nixon in 1972, he said, "When you hear the word organic, think starvation," quote unquote. That was his big statement that he made back then. Well, now organic is a USDA regulation, a national law that's embraced by everybody in the country. It's not seen as unusual. It's seen as mainstream. Well, that's 30 years between 72 and 2002. Is 30 years to go from hippie gonna starve yourself and seen with whatever to mainstream. And I think that's kind of interesting because you kind of see the evolution of people away from pesticides and the books Silent Spring being written and all these wonderful paradigm shifting concepts about how we manage our ecosystems have trended us away from using pesticides and herbicides and hormones and things and antibiotics in our foods to now more of a in concert with Mother Nature, in concert with the environment we live in, and not be in conflict with it, but more in concert with it. So I think that organics has become commercialized as well. And in the commercialization of organics, initially organic dairy, the regulations said specifically, you must have access to pasture. That pasture must be certified organic. Well, now, just in the few short years that organic certification's been around in the last 4 years on the National Organic Standard, guess what? Pasture access is no longer required. The big factory farm interests have gotten themselves right in the middle of the organic party and changed the rules to meet their needs. So I think that organic means different things to different people. Organic means for factory farming guys, we can go make a lot more money because we can get away with confinement facility, processing plant, factory farm practices and still call it organic because the consumers don't even know. And to the consumer, organic means whole, biologically diverse, enzyme rich, no pesticides, no hormones, no antibiotics, good for my kids, good for me. But in fact, both, the whole paradigm's wrong. For organic dairy specifically, organics means highly processed. Doesn't mean less processed, it means more processed. Organic dairy processes are UHT pasteurized, 282 degrees pasteurized, not 180 or 160 that conventional is. It's homogenized. Butterfat cells are obliterated completely. Standardized, where you take apart all the milk, you add it all back together with other components to make sure the values are exactly right according to regulation. And A&D and other things are put in to fortify it, which may not be organic. That's not what the intention of organic was originally supposed to mean. And that's why I think the consumers are being misled grossly by thinking when they're drinking organic, they're getting something that's whole and the way Mother Nature intended it to be. Well, it may have started out that way, but it certainly didn't get their plate that way because of the processing it went under. So at Organic Pastures Dairy, we take the concept of organic to a different level. We went back to the founders of organic and the raw concept of the fact that it's biodiverse, enzyme-rich, whole foods from cows in a natural environment where they're supposed to be instead of a factory farm, and create a food which is basically untouched by man. It comes out of the cow and put into a bottle, and then you drink it. And it creates miraculous things in your body because it is what it is. And that's where we've taken the organic thing and actually downplayed it although we are certified organic, we've actually downplayed it and come up with standards even higher than organic, which are fundamentally the genetics of organics, with the rawusa.org certification, which basically says no processing whatsoever. Cows must be treated humanely. The cows must come from an organic environment with all the natural things they would normally eat, instead of a conventional or factory farm environment with artificial things they would never eat. So I believe that there's a continuing evolvement of the word organic, the word raw, and the one thing that's a mainstream through it all is our nutritional needs don't change. Our bodies, yeah, haven't changed in 10,000 years. And the more we deviate from what the fuel that it's supposed to fly on, the more we get problems. And the more we go back to the fuels that are intended for our bodies to be fueled by our maker, whoever you suggest might be the one that designed this grand plan, or if it's just by Darwin evolution. It doesn't matter. It's the fuels that made us healthy. The Swiss that lived 100 years without disease, the Bulgarians, the various different tribes of Africans, the Eskimos, the people that ate raw foods, raw fish, raw milk, raw fats, extremely well. And I think the more we live, the more we realize, the more we deviate from these natural whole food diets, the more we get diseases that we've only seen in the last 100 years. So that's my take on organic, that it's been really taken over by commercialization, and there's been kind of a blindsiding of the consumer, at least on the organic dairy side. Organic strawberries, I don't think they've done anything wrong there. I think they're organic strawberries. But when you take milk and you start processing it highly to try to extend the shelf life out to 120 days and do all kinds of weird things, you start really getting in trouble with the intent of organic versus what exactly expressed in your body when you eat that food. So that's why we've embraced the raw and organic together.
The word organic, as we said, has kind of been manipulated.
Yes.
Tell us your approach here. Obviously, we had a chance to go out on the pasture. We had a chance to look at the cows. We had a chance to look at their environment. We saw the food they eat. They're eating grass, or they're eating grasses and things that naturally grow there. You don't necessarily, you do plant things, but things that would naturally grow in this environment. Right. Why is that important for a cow to eat that's going to then provide us with more or healthier milk?
Well, one thing, they're eating a living food. When you eat grass, you're eating something that has chlorophyll pumping through it. It's been hit by the sun. It's biologically diverse. You've got not just one grass, you've got maybe 15 or 20 that the cow can eat as a smorgasbord as they choose. And it's not man making those choices, it's the cow making those choices. So physiologically, they have triggers in their brain that says, I need more of this, and they go eat that. And they change their diets through the year. They can actually select what they want to eat and stay healthy. When man decides the entire diet for the cow, you can actually misguide that cow down some pathway where they won't be healthy anymore. Although that rarely happens because they have nutritionists that are very, very good. Nonetheless, you're mandating man's course for that cow versus nature's course for that cow. So, that's part of it. The other part of it that I really think is important is cows on a green grass pasture that are naturally managed without antibiotics or hormones or anything else, that are not all bunched in a big crowd but allowed to do what they're supposed to normally do with bull breeding and everything else, don't have pathogens, don't have disease-causing organisms in their milk because there's none in their manure. And that's a completely different paradigm of understanding than what you see in conventional dairies. Conventional dairies, 31% of the time, the raw milk has a pathogen in it, like Salmonella or E. coli 157, which are nasty bugs. When we have never found those pathogens or any other human pathogen in our raw milk. In 5 years, 24 million servings and over 1,000 tests. It simply doesn't happen. And when we add them experimentally into our milk, they won't live, they die off rapidly. So our milk is highly resistant to these emerging pathogens because it itself is a living organism with its own immune system. It's a living, breathing organism. The milk is not dead, it's alive. And as a result, you're eating something that has a plethora of things you really can't even describe because there's these living elements that evolve and change and duplicate that also synthesize with our bodies, do the same thing.
So we've talked about bacteria a little bit. Uh-huh. And the word bacteria has got a bad rap.
Scary.
Bacteria.
Bacteria.
Kill it.
Kill it all.
Spray it. Lysol. I mean, it's chlorine. It's just any kind of bacteria. From when I was growing up as a kid, I used to swim at the pool. Bacteria. Chlorine, kill it.
Yes.
But there are good bacteria too. So let's describe that, and then the word pathogen is a bacteria that's bad for you, I guess. So give me some information about that. Yeah,
that's correct. The FDA's position on bacteria is there are no good bacteria. The only good bacteria is dead bacteria, basically. Although privately they'll share with you that it's too technical to explain to a person in the public that there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. They've just taken the stance that bacteria is all bad. In fact, their Fight Back campaign for school children education is called Fight Backed. And it's got this big, ugly-looking cartoon character that looks like he's going to just eat you and all your relatives. That's a bacteria, and he's a bad bacteria, and you're supposed to fight him. And they don't have a good bacteria fighting a bad bacteria. They just got everybody fighting this bad bacteria. And I think that is a horribly narrow, short-term vision for our health in this country. Because it is essential to understand that throughout the history, the Swiss, the Bulgarians, Africans, every culture in every continent has had some source of biodiversity in their diet, where they've had living bacteria, either through biofermentation, lactofermentation, high meat, rotten meat even, raw milk, yogurts, Bulgarus bacteria in yogurts in the Bulgarians. Every culture you can find a fermented underlying part of the nutritional ration that people drink and eat, which underlied the need for a good immune system. Your immune system relies upon the diversity of good bacteria in your gut. The American public has basically been eating a sterile diet for quite some time, because if you think about it, our diet is based on food that's sold to us that's commercially processed. Commercial processed foods kills everything, so it has a long shelf life. It doesn't fall apart. It doesn't evolve into some other food. It stays the same packaged food, either preserving it, radiating it, heating it, some way kills off all the bacteria so it will stay the same for a long time. Well, that decreases nutritional value, certainly eradicates all your biological values, and allows a sterile diet for the consumer. Well, the more sterile you eat, the more susceptible you are to any bug that comes along, because you don't have the diversity of bacteria in your intestine to support an immune system which is ready to deal with any little bug that comes along. So we now have children in daycare centers that pick up any bug that comes along. And the bugs that are coming along are pretty righteously terrible. You've got antibiotic-resistant bacteria now, which are coming out of the hospitals into the mainstream environments around the hospitals and in the communities, which resist antibiotic treatment now and are horrible. They're killing people. They're infecting our wounds, they're infecting our bodies, they're creating different kinds of ulcers and different kind of heart disease and stuff that we've never seen before, and antibiotics won't kill them. So we've seen the most progressive doctors treating them with probiotics, not antibiotics. You've seen the naturopathic doctors come in and say, I want you to drink raw colostrum. And the patient goes, what? He goes, yeah, raw colostrum's got about 80 different kinds of bacteria and all these antibodies and this and that and the other thing. And what do you know? Within a few days, their ulcer starts to get better, and then within a few weeks, they don't have an ulcer anymore. That's a probiotic approach versus an antibiotic approach. So my take on this whole concept of bacteria is we have missed the boat on the fact that it's essential to have good bacteria in our diets. And it's becoming more and more evident. I think I read to you something over lunch about the recent Nobel Prize being given to someone who discovered that bacteria caused gastric ulcers, not smoking and not alcohol and not coffee. And that's not a pH problem or acid problem, it is a bacterial infection problem. So we're missing the boat on inflammation and we're missing the boat on bacteria as a friend versus all bacteria being a foe. And the more we can get on board with the fact that we have to live as a part of a bigger environment, spaceship Earth here, which is inhabited by bacteria and human beings and mammals and all kinds of species here, and that we shouldn't be foreign to it, but accompanying with it, working with it, the better and healthier we're going to be. The more we try to live in a glass bubble, the more anything that gets by that glass bubble is going to get us, and get us quick, because we won't have an immune system to deal with it. So we don't live in a vacuum. We live very much preoccupied in a space with cohabitating with bacterium and viruses and all kinds of goodies that we need to be friends with and have occupying our bodies. So there's not a gradient between us and it. We're one and the same. And that doesn't mean live filthy, but it means to live in concert or in harmony with your environment.
And these bacteria, what's a good way to get them? Obviously, through raw milk and raw products.
Obviously, I'm in the raw milk business, so I speak mostly about raw milk. But if you look broadly across the world, it's not just raw milk, it's lactofermentation of vegetables. It's curing of vegetables in a high bacteria environment with vinegars and things like that. It's eating fresh foods. It's eating raw milk. Obviously, raw milk is a fantastic medium for growing and supporting the growth. We call it feeding and seeding. You actually seed the bacteria in your intestine, and then you go about feeding those bacteria. The whole idea of a probiotic and a prebiotic are the same kind of thing. You can eat a bacterium, but it'll starve unless it's fed properly. Well, raw milk has the lactose sugar, which feeds the bacteria very, very well. So you drink raw milk, you not only get the inoculum of 50 to 80 different kinds of bacteria in your intestines, which gives you that broad coverage of viruses and bacteria, which is going to give you that experience. But it also gives you lactose sugars, which support the growth of those bacterium so that they're healthy and they continue to proliferate and they're healthy in your body. So raw milk is a great way to get it. And it's biblical in context. I mean, land of milk and honey, my God. The two things talked about in the Bible, milk and honey. Honey is very much the same. Where did honey come from? Honey is collected from bee pollen. It's digested by the bee and put in their bee colony as a part of the digestive process of a bee. It's a collection of the pollens and the digestion of the environment. What a more fantastic place to get immunoglobulins and all these wonderful factors from pollen from all the environment to help your immune system. The same thing with cows. Cows in a green grass pasture eating all these things and pollens and all these things that are digested and made into this food of milk give you the same kind of effect. Land of milk and honey. I mean, it's been around a while.
That's pretty interesting. Now, isn't honey the one substance that doesn't go bad? I mean,
It doesn't go bad. It goes good.
I mean, it can stay around for years.
The sugar levels are so high and there's so much good competitive architecture. The elements are so competitive in there that you don't have contamination by bacterium. And if there is, it's a very rare thing. It's not something that happens normally.
Right. In fact, I thought they found honey in the pyramids or something like that, and it's still good.
It's still
now,
good.
And milk, this raw milk has the same kind of thing going on too, right? The raw milk,
it does.
It stays good for a while.
Well, it doesn't stay good for a while. It stays good forever. Not as raw milk, though. Raw milk is a fresh product. If you look at nature's design, was intended to be drank within 20 minutes of being squirted out of the cow. Drink it now, okay? But then it was to be held in a goat stomach and slung over the guy's back to be marched to the next place you're going to camp, right? Well, when it went in the goat stomach, what do you know? There was some rennet in the goat stomach lining that helped to coagulate the milk and make it into cheese. And there was bacteria in that goat's stomach as well. So the milk that was fresh to drink immediately was great to drink, it was wonderful. But then was stored in the goat's stomach, was made into kefir or a clabbered cheese of some kind within 24 to 48 hours. And they would hold the goat milk, the goat bag up and they'd squeeze it, and that would be the whey. You could drink the whey, which is a watery, protein-rich fluid, which is wonderful for your immune system and great for health. It builds your strength. In fact, we've got weightlifters and boxers that are drinking our raw whey now and find it phenomenally wonderful. And you could eat the curd, which is high in casein protein and other bacteria and enzymes, and that would be your protein. So you had yourself something you could take with you without having to go kill an animal and hunt it down and kill it. Sometimes you got killed with the animal and you didn't always get the animal. But you got to eat a protein-rich, safe food. And so you had fresh milk, you had a cheese-whey combination, and then if you wrang it out, you could let that cheese get hard. And we all know that hardened cheeses get better with time. My God, we pay fortunes for 10-year-old cheese. So, it's a wonderful evolutionary food that will last literally for the millennia if handled properly, not preserved, but literally put the correct molds on it and you store it in the correct humidity. It will last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I can't really put a time on it because it's one of those things that's perpetual because it is a living thing.
So is milk really raw milk? Is it like a perfect food? It has so many good things in it.
I would put it in with cheese, with meat, with vegetables and fruit as a perfect food. No question about it. It is unprocessed. It has within it all the wholeness necessary to evolve and be safe in perpetuity. Unlike processed foods, which actually have a limited shelf time and then it falls apart because it doesn't have the wholeness of it. It doesn't have those necessary enzyme bacteria to evolve it to the next level. It falls apart by rotting and becoming actually very putrid because of the infestation of opportunistic bacteria because there's no competition anymore. And what do you know? It becomes toxic. And that's why you don't drink overdate pasteurized milk. You get really sick, where you can drink overdate raw milk all you want. You never have a problem. So you're right. I would put it in one of the categories of perfect food, no question.
Okay, we talked throughout the day about the process of conventional dairy and the processing that is going on right now. You mentioned a couple things: pasteurization, homogenization, adding things to it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't know that people really understand what pasteurization is.
Absolutely. Let's talk about four things: pasteurization, homogenization, standardization, and then supplementation. Those are probably the four things we could probably talk about with milk. Conventional dairy systems and the current paradigm, if you will, the culture we have in the United States, is where you take milk to a creamery. And the milk is collected from many different dairies and goes to a creamery, allows a very high level of bacteria in that milk because it's all commingled together, and it goes through a pasteurizer. The pasteurizer is heat treatment. That's all it is, heat treatment. The milk is taken to at least 140 degrees in a vat, or 161 degrees. In the vat, you would take it for maybe 30 minutes. It would be a long-term kind of thing. Pasteurization at HTST, which is the high temperature short time pasteurization, is 161 degrees for about 15 to 20 seconds, depending on whose standard you're working on. Or ultra high temperature pasteurization, which is 282 degrees for 3 to 5 seconds. And that's where they take it to regular pasteurization temperature, and then they inject culinary steam to rocket it way up, literally 120 degrees higher, and then back down by a cooling process. Those processes basically kill most of the bacteria.
Good and bad.
Everything. Indiscriminate. They don't select out and say, you stand in this line, you stand in this line. They all line up and get shot in the head, okay? During that process, the bacterium that are being killed, the cell bodies, membranes are being broken open. That's how you kill the bacteria. Well, those cell membranes, when they're broken open, release their cytotoxins and the various different things inside of the cell membrane. Their internal contents are spilled out. Those internal contents are histamines. They are the minuscule proteins that are foreign to your body, because your body doesn't know how to understand these little foreign things that are coming from inside of a dead cell. It could see the big cell and understands it. It could recognize it. Oh, I know what that is. It's a bacteria. But when you break it open, you have all these little foreign proteins running around. Those are histamines, which starts a big battle and triggers an immune response of the histamine reaction. Histamine reactions can be asthma attacks, can be inflammation, can be tearing of the eyes, can be mucus production in your throat, can be itching, scratching, redness, all kinds of things that we all know and we all don't like. Histamine problems, because we have, gets drowsy from taking antihistamines and that whole thing. So the pasteurization process renders this milk to be basically low bacteria count in terms of living bacteria, but very high bacteria in terms of if a dead bacteria count is extremely high, but they're all dead, or many of them are all dead.
And we should really explain again that the milk as it comes out of the cow
very clean.
It's basically clean if the cow's clean, if the environment's clean, the cow's eating the right stuff. But that there are bacteria in it that typically, if it's a good environment, the bacteria are good for your body.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what happens is the bacteria coming from the cow are generally fine. From inside of the udder, the milk is very clean. The problem is the cross-contamination from manure on the side of the bag or on the teat where the machine goes on. You can't sterilize the teat or the teat or the udder of the cow. It would be impossible. There's a very diverse bacteria count on the surface of the skin of the cow's teat when you put the machine on. And so it's not a sterile process. Although we try to keep it clean, it's not sterile. If you have bad bugs coming out of the manure of the cow, and it's somehow microscopically being contaminated in the cow milk, you're going to see it in the milk. So what matters is what's in the cow's manure ends up in the cow's milk microscopically.
Because that manure is everywhere. Because that's the way cows are.
Put a black light on and look for we live in a macroscopic environment. We don't see the micro. You look in the micro, it's everywhere. It's like wearing a white suit in a black room that was just painted black. You're going to get black on you, but you can't see it because the bacteria is microscopic. Right. It's everywhere. That's pasteurization. Okay. Raw milk does not ever undergo raw milk intended for human consumption does not undergo pasteurization. It's a living product which has a very, very low bacteria count.
Because if you pasteurize it, it would kill everything.
It would kill it.
It wouldn't be alive.
It would not be alive. Okay. Raw milk is a living, breathing food. Raw milk that is produced here at Organic Pastures Dairy has about 1,000 to 3,000 bacterium per milliliter of milk. Milk produced in a conventional dairy is allowed to have up to 50,000 bacteria per milliliter, and when taken to the creamery, can have up to 200,000 bacteria. Some dairy creameries have actually a lower standard. But what's interesting about that is they're all rendered dead by the pasteurization process. But the bacteria are still there, just in dead form. So the pasteurization process doesn't clean anything. It just kills it. So you have filthy dead milk, not filthy living milk. I think you get what I'm saying. Homogenization is a different process. Homogenization is phenomenally important to understand significantly as far as the history of milk is concerned. Back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, when milk was being sold to the back doorstep of mom's house, the milk could be delivered in a glass jar, and you could see the butterfat level in the top of the glass. And there was a lot of competition between the dairies who had more butterfat in their milk. And the person who had more butterfat got more money and got more consumers. Well, the housewife would look out back in the back and say, the free one that came from the competitor had more cream in the top, and the old one came from the old guy, had less cream. She'll take the new one and leave the other guy to rot and tell him that she wants the new dairy distribution. And so they'd win the competition on that household for milk, okay?
Yeah.
So it was a competition between who's got more fat and who doesn't have. Well, the dairy industry figured that out. And they said, you know what? You don't need to be worrying about butterfat anymore, because we're going to homogenize it. We're going to make it all mixed together. And we're going to fortify it too. We're going to add in some vitamin A and vitamin D, which needs to be homogenized to mix it all together. And in case it doesn't have enough, we'll even add in some dried powdered milk to fortify it even some more, make it even better for you. So they got the people in this country convinced that destroying the butterfat so it no longer floated in the milk was important. What they didn't realize, or maybe they did realize, I'm not sure. If they did realize, it was a crime. Hopefully they didn't realize it. Was that they were actually destroying an essential part of the embodiment of the milk itself. And that by crushing the butterfat cells and making them little pieces, they were releasing some very, very important enzymes which are not supposed to be in milk. They were destroying the butterfat as it was. They're making that butterfat from a nice, soft, big, spongy, marshmallowy looking thing that doesn't generally go through your intestines. It gets digested in your intestines and doesn't go through into little shards that move all over the place and go through your intestinal wall and get moved places they aren't supposed to be and get logged up, and all kinds of problems happen. So they started having a solution to a business problem becoming a real value added to them, because they no longer had to prove they had more butterfat. In fact, they could put less butterfat in and just add dried powdered milk in to make up the mouthfeel. Because skim milk looks blue, it doesn't look white. But you could add in other things to make the milk look white and have less butterfat, because you can make butter out of your butterfat and cheat it from the housewife who wanted whole milk. So it was a way to start cheating people out of their milk value and actually cheating our bodies out of nutritional value. And that hopefully was a side effect, not an intended effect. And some European nations have found in their studies, the FDA denies this, that coronary artery disease is directly associated to homogenized milk. And those countries that have more homogenized milk consumption have the highest levels of coronary artery disease. So it's not a good thing. It's a horrible thing.
How do they homogenize the milk? What do they do?
Homogenization, they take the milk and they put it under high pressure, 3,000 to 6,000 pounds per square inch of pressure, and they squirt it through an extremely small hole against a stainless steel plate. And by doing that, it obliterates the butterfat cells, so that the butterfat cell is now in shards, not in a soft, round container or soft butterfat molecule.
So they just break them all apart
It's
and just
obliterated.
mix them all up.
It's smashed.
And it's so small that it never goes back together.
Correct, and it doesn't want to float to the top anymore of the milk. It's actually integrated homogeneously along with the vitamin A, the vitamin D, the dried powdered milk, and the other thing they want to put in there to kind of make the mouth feel right, so it tastes correctly during the processing plant. So homogenization is not your friend.
Uh-huh. And I think most people don't know that.
It's an ugly thing. Go on the internet, type in homogenization. Let me tell you, there's a big fight going on there about the fact it's not a good thing at all. It's horrible.
So it not only robs the nutritional value, because it does. I mean,
well, I would say nutritional, people generally seem to think of vitamins in nutrition. It doesn't really change the vitamin thing. It changes the physical nature of butterfat,
right,
from a nice big soft thing that conducts itself one way, and to pieces of little shards that conduct themselves completely differently and they enter your body differently, they're digested differently, they cause different effects in our arteries. It's a different thing. You've changed the milk irreparably. The next thing I would say is standardization.
Right.
You got pasteurization, homogenization, and standardization. Standardization is where you take the milk apart, You take the butter fat off, you take the protein out, you take some non-fat solids out, you take them into its parts, and you store them separately, and you say, okay, what am I going to engineer today for, what are my orders? I need some skim milk. I need some whole milk. I need some this, I need some that. And you take the laws that regulate milk and you say, what are the very minimum standards I need for this milk? And you then put the milk back together to meet those standards. So you never add a little bit more butterfat than you need because you just want to have that much, because any more would be a waste.
Right.
And so you standardize the milk so you always get exactly the same thing all the time. At Organic Pastures Dairy, you never know what you're going to get because it's coming directly from the cow. You get 3.8% butterfat or 4.2% butterfat. It's constantly changing because it's a natural standardization. It's whatever the cow gave you today.
Just based on the weather, based on what they eat, based
God
on how they
knows
feel.
literally.
Yeah.
God knows literally.
Yeah.
And all we know is that we chill it as fast as possible to keep the bacteria counts low and extend the shelf life. Other than that, you get what came out of the cow. So we don't standardize anything where you add in various different substitutes or supplements or butterfat or less or more of anything. It's what it came from the cow. Standardization is not a poisonous thing. It is a regulatory thing where you're trying to basically meet the minimum standards to get by versus what Mother Nature gave you. So that's kind of what it is. The other thing that's kind of nasty about standardization is that there's something called standard of identity. And standard of identity means that you don't have to declare fully what's in the milk because everybody knows it's milk. Which means you could add things to the milk because it's milk. You don't have to say anything about it on the label. Which I think is the biggest atrocious, horrible thing that ever happened. And the USDA and FDA have approved these standards by the dairy industry where you can add in dried powdered milk and not say anything about it. You can add in various other preservatives and not say anything about it. You can add in coloring and not say anything about it because it's part of the standard of identity that these things can be done and still just call it milk. So none of that stuff's going on, none of that funny stuff's going on in terms of characterization of your milk or trying to change its character based on some artificial thing you're doing to augment, which can be done when you take the milk all apart and then you add them back the way you want and you add some additional things in there too. That's standardization, which is a very technical, tricky thing you can do to make money. Last thing I think I mentioned was the supplementation, and that is the addition of vitamin A, vitamin D, and other things that...
Well, that sounds like a good thing. Is it or is it not?
Well, I think, I don't know whether it is or not. I literally don't know. I think that's up for other people to decide than me. I'm not going to make a choice of whether it's good or bad. I'm just saying what it is. When you get raw milk out of a cow, it's got plenty of vitamin A. It's got plenty of vitamin D. It's got some vitamin C in it. Even though on our label, it says 0 vitamin C, there is vitamin C, but the regulations say we must say 0 because we have to round down. Even though it's got substantial amounts, it's rounded. So the regulations actually tell us what can go on our nutritional statement, not the scientists at the lab that analyze our food. There's all kinds of things that come up, but you only can say certain things because the regulations say you can only say certain things. You have to round numbers. It's not particularly accurate, let's put it that way. But vitamin A and vitamin D, where they're derived from, I don't know the exact nature of this, but one of them is rat poison. It's kind of scary. The tocopherols and something, they aren't particularly, in higher doses are pretty toxic and are very artificial and synthetic. They're not naturally occurring and not as available as they would be from a natural source. When a cow's out in the sunshine, she's got plenty of sun on her, she's eating things that have sunshine on it, vitamin D is fine, vitamin A is fine, C is fine, E is fine. But when you do everything artificially, you add that back because you've destroyed it during the pasteurization process. It's been eliminated or reduced substantially. And the USDA and Food Pyramid says you've got to have this, they want to supplement this. So they add that back into the milk. It's been destroyed in another part of the process. So those are the 4 factors I would say. And I would mention one more thing about pasteurization, which I think is fascinating. The tests for pasteurization in the United States today, the benchmark, the watermark for pasteurization, the scientific test for pasteurization is called the negative phosphatase test. Phosphatase is an enzyme, ends with an ASE on the end, phosphatase. Phosphatase in our bodies is responsible for the absorption and utilization of phosphates, phosphorus, and calcium.
Okay.
Well, how the heck are we supposed to absorb calcium and phosphorus and these phosphates if you don't have this enzyme available? It's arguably, there's no argument, it's a moot point. You destroyed it during pasteurization because the test is called negative phosphatase. If it indicates you have phosphatase, you haven't pasteurized yet. If it has a negative phosphatase, guess what? You've hit the mark. You've killed off all the enzymes, so that's the indicator for killing off the bad bugs. So I think it's probably one of the greatest nutritional lies told in the 20th century, the last 100 years, is get your calcium from milk. Because the bioavailability of that milk is lessened substantially by the fact that the enzyme responsible for the absorption of that milk is missing as well, and many people don't have any reserves of that enzyme. Just like they don't have reserves of lactase, many people don't have, that needs to come from a natural bacteria source or another source. And raw milk has that natural source of bacteria, the lactobacillus, which creates lactase in our bodies. So these whole foods make up for deficiencies we may have. And I just find it egregious, the fact that they brag about calcium being this great source in milk, when in fact in pasteurized milk, it's gone. As far as the bioavailability is concerned, the calcium may be there, but your body can't use it. Or maybe not everybody's body can use it. And there's the people that get osteoporosis and have bone deficiencies and bone density problems because they can't absorb the calcium that they're exposed to. It's got to be bioavailable.
Right.
And so raw milk has these enzymes available. So guess what? You can absorb all these things which are coming through your intestinal tract. You can absorb and utilize them. It's a whole food. So, I mean, there's a lot of this that's political, nutritional, just so many ways to look at this. And the bottom line is follow the money. Follow the money, and you'll find commercialization, processing, extended shelf life, all part of this matrix, creating a hollow food.
Well, let's talk about your process and the way that your milk is packaged and delivered, and the fact that you really aren't, your cycle versus the conventional cycle. How long does it take, and what happens?
Yeah, I would say the most dramatic thing to say is conventionally produced milk is a very low value added product. 12 cents per pound is what the farmer gets for that milk. $12 per 100 pounds of milk is all the guy gets. Very low value in terms of its product value to the farmer. Has a very long shelf life. Under UHT or ultra high temperature pasteurized, it goes 60 to 90 days depending on packaging. So a very long shelf life, very easy to distribute because it'll last a long, long time. Very low nutritional value. You have a very low happiness level also with the consumer because it's doing very little for their bodies. It's making basically their cereal white. It's not actually adding much to their nutritional value at the beginning of their day. So you have long shelf life, low value added for the farm, low nutritional value for the consumer. Low, 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 low. Long distance between the farmer and the consumer. They don't even know each other. There's no connection. The farmers don't know the consumers don't know the farmer. It's a mess. It's a broken food chain. Our milk, raw whole milk, has a high value added for the farmer. We get more for the milk. Very, very high nutritional value for the consumer because it's enzyme rich, biodiverse, filled with all the antibodies and all the good fats and everything. It's all there as a whole food. Has a short shelf life. And the farmer knows the consumer and the consumer knows the farmer. Our website talks directly to the consumer's hearts, their minds, their souls, their nutritional values, their children, advice. We're connected. It's a completely different paradigm. It's a completely different food chain. It's a different brand linkage. It's an entirely different concept of distribution, of cold chain management, of connection with branding, the fact we drive our own trucks. We get right to the consumer. We take that milk right to the farmer's market, right to the Whole Foods market, right to the consumer and make sure it's fresh every day that they get that milk. So it's a completely different process. We don't commingle our milk with any other dairy. We matter. That other dairyman down the road doesn't matter. He could go and evaporate tomorrow and he would be not missed. Nobody would care and nobody would know because we've got 14 other dairies that would step up right behind him. If we disappeared tomorrow, they'd be screaming in the streets because raw milk would be missing and people go, where's my raw milk? So it brings back the food chain relevance and the fact that the farmer becomes relevant again, important again. In the United States, farmers have been so much marginalized that nobody cares if the next one goes bankrupt. And they go bankrupt every day. Where in this food chain, we matter, the consumer matters, the product matters, the nutritional value is high, the value for us is high, the shelf life is short. It's a completely different food chain. So, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, the milk comes out of the cow, it's chilled immediately, brought up to our creamery, continue to be chilled. The cold chain is unbroken. It's always kept cold all the way to the consumer, so it stays fresh. It's bottled whole. If we're going to make butter, we separate a little cream off. We have skim milk and butter. Other than that, that's it. There's nothing else that happens to it. That's it.
It's pretty natural.
It's
all natural.
It is all natural, period.
The whole thing. It's like, that's what you said to me. It's been like this for 12,000 years.
Been this way for 12,000 years, from the first recorded time, southern grasslands of Ukraine and Russia, where cows are first rounded up and tied down and milked. And other goats were milked, sheep were milked, ox were milked, buffalo have been milked, camels have been milked, horses have been milked. It was the way that man could actually build community without having to run after their animal and kill it. They could get protein and fat. Raw fats and raw proteins are essential to our body's ability to rebuild itself and live.
You had mentioned to me and some, I guess, customer testimonials and what people notice from drinking milk and what they have, what you've seen and what your other customers have told you about drinking milk. And obviously, you know, it's history that milk has been used medicinally over the years.
We have a whole bunch of different testimonial references at the dairy here, because we've got hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the last 5 years who experienced dramatic recovery from disease processes after drinking our milk or other raw milk from other dairies, not just us. Many people have found our website and drank our raw milk for a while and found it so extremely expensive because of shipping that they, upon our advice, have found a local organic dairy someplace and started to drink milk from that dairy locally, which is something we really encourage. People have, for instance, Heather Zimmerman, her daughter Ashley, she lives in Wisconsin, started drinking our raw milk in our colostrum about 3 years ago and couldn't afford to ship it to him anymore. It was just too expensive. And I advised her to go down to a local dairyman and find a relationship, and she did. Well, Ashley, her daughter, was terribly ill with asthma and had been for quite some time and was in and out of the hospital constantly and all kinds of drugs and everything else. Within literally 2 months of being on raw milk and continuing on raw milk with this local dairyman, no more asthma. Child's doing great. No more chronic nasal drainage, no more coughing, sleeping all well at night. She was so excited about the fact that her child had recovered so quickly from this terribly life-threatening disease that she went back and dug out the Mayo Clinic work done by Crew and some other doctors. And this work had been done only in the 1920s and had been out of print for a long, long time. Took their books, which chronicled over 30 years of work done at the Mayo Clinic where they used raw milk to cure all kinds of things, and brought it back to print. And it's going to be back in print by the 17th of November, which is like next week. We're actually going to be holding this book here for sale. And this is the old teaching that came from the 20s and 30s, where they used raw milk as a cure. So the testimonials are really kind of exciting because these people are finding ways to prevent disease and cure their current disease, not using modern medicines, which can be very destructive and somewhat poisonous. I would say asthma is one of the big things that people find a very good relief from raw milk. I would say gastroenteritis, inflammation of the intestinal tract. It helps rebuild the flora and fauna and the very delicate tissues that line the intestines. There's been a lot of people that have had, and I would say there's different levels of recovery here, but the spectrum of autism goes from just mildly affected through severely affected, that we've had a lot of children do very, very well on raw milk because they suffer chronic leaky gut syndrome. And when you have leaky gut syndrome, you have a lot of food allergies. They're missing many of the bacteria in their intestines, and they're not able to synthesize the neurotransmitters essential for good brain function. And when you get these bacteria back in the intestine and you rebuild the cellular lining of the wall, the mucosal lining of the intestine, what do you know? They start synthesizing the correct neurotransmitters, and their autism starts becoming less and less apparent.
So the digestive system works better.
Yeah, but what people don't realize is it's not just neurotransmitters in your brain. Where do those neurotransmitters get made? They are a side effect of the bacterial interaction of your gut. And these precursors, the serotonins, the dopamines, all those things are made from tryptophan, from raw milk. They're made from the bacterial interactions and the side effects of these bacteria that actually make the chemical precursors which create these other neurotransmitters. So, you know, these kids are suffering ADD now at record amounts. Kids that don't sleep at night. All these things. can base it back to biodiversity, back into nutritional health. The children that are having ADD do very well in raw milk because the tryptophan, very high levels in raw milk, is the precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is the feel-good thing. It's the chemical that you get after having sex. It's an orgasm thing. It's the feel-good, let you sleep well, rest, repose neurotransmitter, and it's missing in our diets. And so you see that. You see colitis. You see acne, really bad acne where people have acne vulgaris, where it's bad infections going on. The inflammation response for that does really, really well with raw milk and raw colostrum. You see, we saw some thyroid people come around and say, I had chronic hypothermia, in other words, low body temperature for many, many years. And they were constantly trying to adjust their thyroid medications. On raw colostrum, in 2 weeks, they had a normal temperature the first time in 20 years. The doctors are blown away. What's going on with that, The glycoproteins found in raw colostrums, there's 7 of them. They're all present. Rarely found in nature. They're all there. It's just almost miraculous. And I kind of have to find myself sometimes, do I sound like a snake oil salesman? Am I some herbologist that's trying to sell a cure to the world? No, it's not. It's the truth in whole raw food that can't be plagiarized, adulterized, pasteurized, homogenized, standardized, in any way changed. It's the truth. And it's the food and fuel that's missing out of our diets that's the derailment of our whole entire pathway of prevention. We get back on track if we can get back in these foods that are whole. And you see miraculous things. The farther people are off the track, the faster it is to see big changes. And we see a very sick country in our current sick care paradigm, not health care paradigm, that it's really great because every time you turn around, you got a lactose intolerant person say, drink this. And what do you know? See the bone density increase in a year because they never drank raw milk. They never drank milk because milk made them sick because they were lactose intolerant and they were drinking soy. And you got, first time ever, men coming up with breast tumors from drinking soy. The estrogen levels are so high. You got women that were vegetarians for 20 years that have these breast tumors all over the place from all these estrogen levels. And what do you know? Their doctors are saying, get off soy, get on raw milk, because you got these estrogen-related breast tumors. And so it's very interesting. And the more I get along with this whole thing, the more I realize that it's back to the basics, unprocessed whole foods from cows on the intended food and feed and treatment they're supposed to have for the last 10,000 years. Because literally before this last 100 years, we didn't see these disease processes. Yeah, we saw gunshot wounds that killed you. Yeah, we saw broken bones that killed you. We saw a lot of infantile death. But generally, the people that were adults lived to be a long, healthy life without diabetes, without heart disease, and without asthma, without these other problems that we now find as related to immune depression. So it's about your immune system. That's what it's about.
Tell us about the products you sell. And give us a little description about each one of them. You've got 5 or 6 or 7 items that you sell here, and then we'll talk about later how to order them.
Sure. We have raw whole milk, which is just that, raw whole milk. We have skim milk, which is generally about 0.5% butterfat because it's gone through a butterfat or a cream separator, which spins the milk and makes the light milk go one way and the heavy milk go the other way. And the light milk is the cream and the heavy milk is the skim. And all it does is just spin it. It doesn't crush it or anything. And so you get cream. So we have cream. Cream is excellent for any kind of arthritic problems as well. It's got the interesting Wolfson factor, which was found back in the 30s and 40s in Germany, which is an anti-inflammatory factor for osteoporosis, or not osteoporosis, but arthritis.
Really?
Yeah.
So raw cream.
Raw cream.
How about that? And you could use that to cook with too.
Absolutely, you can.
Sure.
You
Okay.
can do all kinds of things with it. You make great whipped cream with it.
Uh-huh.
Just whip it up.
Just
put a
the
little honey.
old-fashioned
Oh, it's delicious. Fantastic. We have raw butter, which is just that. It's cream that's been put into a churn and allowed to churn. The butterfat molecules stick together, and buttermilk leaves, the butter fat stays, and you get butter.
Must be
just
pretty-
that.
must
No
be
salt, just butter.
Must be pretty good, huh?
Pretty good stuff.
Now you showed it to me. You said it was very yellow. You said this is the way it's supposed to look.
That's what it looks like when cows eat green grass. It doesn't look that way when you feed them grain and dried feed. It has that natural yellow look, not because of food coloring put in, although other yellow butters actually have annatto. You look at the ingredients, it says annatto food coloring. Our ingredient says raw cream, period, that's it. We make a colostrum, which is raw fresh colostrum, which is the nearest thing to nutrition's holy grail that you can get to. Every mammal creates it. It's a collection of your immunoglobulins and your immune system factors that are deposited into a female mammal's breasts or udder right prior to giving birth to their baby. It's not milk. It doesn't come from the lacteal glands. It comes from as a deposit of your circulatory system depositing these factors into your breasts. Wow. And women, obviously, when they start to nurse their babies, they give their baby colostrum for the first couple of days. Cows do it. Dolphins do it. Every mammal on Earth creates colostrum for their offspring. And colostrum is basically a superfood that transfers the immune experience from the mother to the baby. Because in utero, when the baby's being developed, very little, or I'd say a fraction. I know that human babies get quite a bit of transfer, but bovine babies, calves, get very little transfer. In fact, most calves die that don't get their mother's colostrum. So although human babies do fairly well, they're generally fairly sick if they don't get their mother's colostrum. But nonetheless, the colostrum transfers that immune system factors from the mother to the baby, where the baby's first suckling actually suckles the colostrum from the mother's breast or the udder, and is allowed into a very leaky gastric system where these large molecules are rapidly absorbed into the baby's body. And within 24 hours, this leaky gastric system that they have actually closes down. So it's just a window of time and opportunity where this transfer can actually take place. And when you look at moms that don't nurse their children or have some other artificial feeding concept, a lot of troubles in the babies. Autism is prevalent, immune depression, chronic allergies, chronic colds, those kinds of things happen in children that don't nurse, especially their colostrum. My wife's a labor and delivery nurse. She was just telling me about training they were getting yesterday on colostrum and nursing in a class they had. She said, Mark, it sounded like I was hearing you speak. Because they were talking about the biodiversity, all the different kinds of bacterium that first inoculate the baby's intestines, critical to the baby's immune system. That if they don't get that, guess what? The baby's immune system will falter. That there's a law in Texas, they're trying to pass a law right now in Texas to eliminate gift bags at the hospital that give all these artificial milk supplements supposedly to replace mother's milk. Because in fact, there is no replacement for mother's milk. You gotta get it from mom. If you don't get it from mom, get it from a mother's, a bank that banks colostrum for mothers that can't produce it for some weird reason. Because it is so essential to the development of the brain, the development of the immune system, the ability to stay healthy for your life. And that the overdosing on these artificial milk replacers has actually been very closely associated with obesity in children when they're older. The stretching of their stomachs. It only takes a little bit of this superfood to actually nourish the baby the first few days. And the more you just jam them full of this artificial junk, the more that they start on this whole other way of processing food, and it's not right. This is all coming from Western medicine, not from Mark McAfee. This comes from a hospital-based nursing program telling their nurses how essential it is to have their moms nurse their babies. So you oftentimes may not be able to get good research on raw milk, but just take 1 degree off and go to the veterinarians, and they'll tell you all about colostrum in baby calves. Go 1 degree off to moms in hospitals and nurses, and how babies survive well, and colostrum with babies. And you start getting the real stories with other mammals, not maybe raw milk, which is politically hot.
So if you sell colostrum, what
Yes.
kind of benefits can we get from that colostrum?
Well, you get a tremendous amount of benefit. It's unfortunate that as adults we're as sick as we are in this country, but for an ill adult, it can bring some of the same values that at the start of life for a baby it would have. For instance, immune boosting. You inoculate with rare bacteria, you have immune transfer factor. These glycoproteins, for instance, will go into your body, and where there's confusion, where there's some of the things that have been leached out of certain plastics and Teflons and pesticides and herbicides will tell your body the wrong thing to do. And in fact, some cells will start fighting with other cells, and you'll have misdirected immune system responses. And lupus is a great example, where you start fighting yourself. Well, colostrum has these glycoproteins, which are kind of like traffic cops. They go in and say, cell, I know what you're supposed to do, go do that. And I know what you're supposed to do, you go do that. Instead of doing this, do that. They're telling the cells what to do. And so they get you back on track for what the intended true genetic purpose of the particular cell that it impacts is supposed to do. So it gets rid of the confusion at the cellular level so that you're actually doing the targeted specific tasks you're supposed to be doing throughout your body. So it immunoregulates your metabolism, your different functions of cells and organs throughout your body. It certainly does a nice job of taking care of asthma in just a few weeks, which is a whole inflammation response.
So you just drink it like milk, or
You drink it like milk.
oh, how about that?
You can make a smoothie out of it, add some, blackberries or whatever, and a little honey, and drink it as a smoothie if you want to enhance the flavor. All this stuff we're talking about is delicious. I mean, this is not something that's like you got to drink it like olive oil or something, even though that stuff's not too bad if you know what you're doing. But I mean, this is not a toxin or a potion or some weird thing that doesn't taste good. This stuff's really good. It's
Just
delicious.
the way it is, yeah.
It's just delicious, And the cheese is delicious. The foods are delicious. And just because it's raw doesn't mean it's roadkill. It's not roadkill. This is delicious, extremely safe, intended food for our bodies.
And so now we did colostrum, we did your cheeses, your raw milk, your skim milk.
We make an organic chocolate leche, which is a dietary supplement. It's basically chocolate milk. We make a kefir now, which is very exciting. I think I shared with you earlier how that's done. And it has some interesting historical connotations with Marco Polo finding it when he went to China, in Russia when he did his travels back, before Christ. And it was the food on Noah's Ark. It was handed down from Muhammad, even in the Muslim religion. In Muhammad, it was handed down by God through Muhammad, and spoken about in the Quran as the food that will cure all of your diseases.
Wow.
So I mean, diversely in all the religions and historically, you see these connotations where, wow, I mean, kefir's pretty good stuff. It's got yeast in it, it's got bacterium in it, it's got low lactose, it's easily digested because it's pre-digested.
Naturally high in protein.
Very high in protein.
Yeah.
Billions of good bacteria and 40 to 60 different kinds of bacteria, rare bacteria. It is highly curative. It's phenomenal. It's superfood. Nice flavor.
So now, someone watching this program, how would they be able to order some of your products if it's not available in their stores? Or should they walk into the store and say, can you get this? Or what's the best way for them?
We like them to go into stores and pound their hand and say, we want this product in the store. In fact, most stores, that's how we get in. Consumers demanding it. And then the store says, no problem, I surrender. They call us and we deliver it to the store. That's always a nice way to go when the consumers demand it versus us trying to push it. We're in a couple hundred stores in California. You can go to 1-877-RAW-MILK or organicpastures.com, and you can look at our website and put in your zip code and find out the nearest store to your location. You can drive to your nearest store. You can always buy it at the dairy, which is a little bit of a drive, but we have it here. You can mail order it. You can get it shipped to your house. A little pricey, but you can get it shipped to your house. We ship it all over the United States and internationally. Some countries won't allow us to bring it in, like Canada, because raw milk's illegal in Canada. But we ship it to Blaine, Washington, and people drive across the border and get it all the time.
Uh-huh.
So there's one way or another to skin a cat, and we figure it out because it's basically in our the way we look at this. This is a basic human right. And I did some. I consulted with a very eminent FDA attorney who fights FDA on nutrition stuff, and he said, there are no rights to eat in this country. There's a right not to starve. There's no right to eat. What you put in your mouth, there's no fundamental right to choose what you put in your mouth. You're in jail, they'll feed you what they want. You have no right to say, I want this or this. There's some religious stuff maybe because you don't eat pork or whatever, but as far as eating a raw whole food, you have no right to actually demand that under the Constitution or within the rights that we have under the FDA, the USDA, or Food Pyramid, which is pretty sad because I believe it's an inalienable right that was never in a million years ever assumed to be that could be taken from us by our founding fathers, because they never thought anybody would ever take that from us. It's not like the right to bear arms and the right to this and the right to that were fundamental rights that we have in this country, or right to free speech. This is the right to eat whole foods. It kind of snuck up on us in a back alley and stabbed us, and it got us bad because it took away the one freedom of health. Mm-hmm. And the freedom to be healthy, I think, is a foundational right of not only an American citizen, but as a world citizen. And if we can determine a nutritional passageway, a diet or a ration or a way that we can choose to eat that will keep us healthy, we should have the right to eat that. And we're not talking about cocaine or methamphetamines here. We're talking about raw whole milk from a cow. There are counties and states in this country that forbid the consumption of milk from your own cow.
Wow.
Because they're so fanatical about raw milk. And the dairy lobby is so strong forbidding raw milk from being consumed. And so there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion related to this. There shouldn't be any. This should be just foundationally right. You go to third world country, everybody's got a goat, and they all drink there's 10 more times more goats in this world than there are cows. Everybody's got goat's milk, and they drink it, it's like no big deal.
And goat's cheese is really good.
It's great.
it's a
it's
delicacy.
Raw.
Yeah.
And it's raw. But in this country, the milk lobby is so strong, and the politics and the money is so strong that the regulations have basically marginalized raw milk and the access to raw milk to criminalize it completely.
Well, you really have a great passion for what you're doing.
Well, I tell you,
it comes through. I mean,
you don't get to where I am today without being passionate, because the crushing blows given to you by the FDA. I was sat upon here for almost a week by 3 investigators and 2 inspectors, flashing the badges and going around and collecting information, hoping to shut me down. They could not find one pathogen. They tried, and they actually had to retest because they believed they messed up in the lab. And this happened about 2 years ago. And I had our attorneys out here. Literally, it was a land battle without guns. It was a battle of laptops and litigation, is what it was. And they left with a tail between the legs because we actually caught them in a corrupt move here, which I'd be more than happy to share. I mean, they came in with an authority letter that says, we're going to check your cheese plant for conditions and so on and so forth. I said, fine, great. And they ended up, in the 3rd day when I wasn't watching, going through all my internet sales because they wanted to catch me doing interstate transport of raw milk. Uh-huh. And I caught them in that, took a camera picture of them, and yelled out at the lady that was actually doing the criminal act, who was outside of their scope of authority. And she was taking pictures as fast as she could with a digital camera. She walked outside. She was terrified that I was going to choke her or something, because I was screaming at her and telling everybody to come around and look at this criminal act. This is an FDA inspector person who's authorized by the highest levels to come check on us. And it was true their intentions were to try to catch me in some criminal act to be able to come in and shut me down. And we caught them in the criminal act. So I was able to show that we did all of our interstate transport with a raw milk, a pet food sticker, which is not against the law. And the FDA had to completely capitulate and go away. Mm-hmm. And so we've had our battles. It's not been easy. It's been passion that carries me through this. And I'd say the one thing that you don't see today, you just see my energy, is the energy from the consumer. When the consumer calls me and cries and says, thank you so much for the fact that my child no longer suffers asthma, or my child can be left at daycare now and doesn't get chickenpox, or whatever wonderful thing they have to share with me, that drives your energy level at a very, very basic level. And so I exude that energy because the consumers feed it to me every day. So there's a lot of reason to fight and fight like hell. So it's worthy of the long-term fight. It's worthy for my children and the progeny of this business and going to the next generation. It's certainly worthy for the consumer's welfare and their right to access food. And there's no leaders in this thing, so they need leaders. And I hate to profess myself as a leader, but when you just stand up and start doing and acting and passionate, you end up being the de facto leader. So I'm one of the only guys that gets to talk about this on a commercial basis in the United States. The rest of the people just simply do it and do it on a black market basis. A lot of the Amish do it. Other people do it just by sharing their food on a family farm basis. But when you do it on a retail shelf basis, you have to actually defend yourself in light of a barrage all the time.
So where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years?
I see ourselves with a brand new creamery in a couple of years. I see ourselves with solar systems, energizing all of our pumps and watering systems, and all of our energy coming from solar systems, and a green kind of a thing. I see ourselves as 2 or 3 times more cows on more ground, all green and clean and green managed. I see myself doing mostly educational work and promotional work versus actually hands-on milking and doing the processing and production work. I see ourselves as trendsetters and pioneers that have actually proven something. And it's not that I've proven anything, it's just that we've proven that Mother Nature was right, and been good stewards of her design, her blueprint, and not letting it die away, and hopefully marrying back her blueprint with good health. And people realizing in that, oh yeah, minute, they get that, oh, I get it, I'm enlightened, where they can say, oh yeah, I got this, I got it now. And then that grows like wildfire because people tell people on a tenfold basis whenever they have a good experience. They want to share that information. And that's where I hope to be in 5 years, is basically being able to speak more and more, even though I do quite a bit of speaking now, more and more to people who are more and more excited, and hopefully bringing more and more dairymen into the fold under a raw organic standard, whatever that might be. Hopefully it's the Raw USA standard. I think it's a very good one, where we have more and more access to raw milk and whole foods in general, and more people appreciating better lives because of it. That's where I see myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing that milk is such a huge industry. The milk itself and the whole dairy is a huge industry.
Oh, yeah.
And really, I've heard, and perhaps we could start here, that, you know, we are the only species that actually drinks milk once we're, you know, past, you know, childhood. So the weaning age, I guess, right? Is that correct?
Humans are the only species that continue to drink milk after they've been weaned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and why do we drink milk, and how did this all happen to us?
Well, certainly some of that we know, and some of that we have to speculate on, because anytime we look at something that has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, unless somebody had a time machine and could program it and write into the program, okay, I want the first time anybody ever drank milk that wasn't an infant breastfeeding. That's where I want to go. And then we can find out why that person did that and how it happened, because otherwise we don't really know for a fact. But in my classes very often, I will have somebody raise their hand and say, now, and it's usually after I've started talking about milk, which we're just about to talk about now, they'll say, but since humans are the only species that ever drink milk after, you know, the individual is weaned, it can't be good for us. And I sort of smile and I go, well, if anything that humans are the only species that does is bad for us, we have a problem.
Because we do a lot of things, yeah.
Because, my God, I mean, we are the only species that write. We are the only species that tape record what we say. We are the only species that have books that we can use to learn from. We are the only species that drive around in any kind of vehicles, much less fly. I mean, we're the only species that does huge numbers of things. So I have no problem whatsoever doing many things for which we are the only species that does, because I don't think that can ever make something bad. If it made things bad, we'd be in deep doo-doo. I mean, look at how many things we do that nobody else does. So I just discount that totally. I even add to that, well, let's take a bunch of different foods. Let's take peppers, broccoli, eggplant. Somebody needs to tell me how we are able to determine that those are foods that are human foods, that we're supposed to eat them. I mean, how do we know that those foods are not foods that are only supposed to be eaten by either animals or insects? We don't know this. So we have found many, many, many different things over thousands of years that appear to be nourishing, that don't get people ill, that help people sustain themselves, that taste good to whoever it is that's eating them, and those are things that continue to be consumed. So we consume milk because milk is a very wholesome food. How wholesome is it? Well, let's look at that. How many different foods can you mention or list that are so complete that for 6, 8, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years can be the only food of any kind that some animal eats, and they're very healthy? Name another one besides milk coming out of the breast of an animal. There isn't one.
Right.
That's it.
Yes.
So milk is such a phenomenally healthy food that, of course, assuming the mother is eating well, that will make a difference. The better the mother eats, the better the milk will be. But it is such a phenomenal food that it can be the sole sustenance for a species. With humans, if the mother really knows as much about nutrition as they should, and if the pediatrician that's working with them, if they're working with a physician, knows as much as he or her should, that they will actually be told that the infant should not be given any type of food of any kind, liquid, solid, mashed, zero food of any kind except breast milk for the first year of their life. because that will make a healthier child. And actually other populations, that's way more than a year. It's a year and a half, it's 2 years, sometimes it's 3 years. The longest study that was done and published in major medical journals in the United States was carried on for 9 months. And it showed that the people, that the infants that were breastfed exclusively for 9 months were the healthiest in numerous categories. So because of that, a lot of pediatricians that have kept up to date with that will tell people, if you really care about the health of your child, the child should get no other food or drink of any kind except breast milk for 9 months. And when I asked, why is the 9-month designation continually being used in presentations that I'd heard, I was told, because that's the longest study they did. Huh. And the experts say, and I bet if they did 12 months, they'll be healthier than the 9-month ones. And probably 18 will be healthier than the 12-month ones. So we don't know how long it would take before at the end of that time it wouldn't matter and it would be okay to eat something else. But since most foods that children are given as soon as something comes in other than breast milk don't hold a candle to the health of the breast milk. I mean, they're given fruit juices, which are basically sugar water. They're given stuff out of cans and containers. They're given such garbage that instantly the child isn't eating as well as when they were getting just breast milk. So it doesn't surprise me that the longer they're given breast milk, the better off they are. So, milk is a very, very healthy food. So people probably looked at this and went, wow, how many different things there isn't that? That's the only one. That's the only food that can totally sustain life for a long, 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 long time. I wonder if there's any reason that it shouldn't be drunk by us as well. And so somebody started, probably, I mean, this is a guess as to what happened, milking cows or goats. I don't think they were milking, elk or wildebeest or something else, or buffalo, but that's probably what began. And as long as they were milking an animal that was properly raised and properly fed, and not, stuck in some kind of farm and given things that animal would not normally ever eat, which is what we currently do to most of our milk. We corn feed a grass-feeding animal, and then we milk them, and then we give that to us. We pasteurize it, we cook it, we do all sorts of things that we'll be talking about. But I don't see any problem whatsoever with milk, as long as the milk is really milk, which most of the milk is not.
So that's interesting because, obviously I came into this with a skeptical thought about milk, and I thought, well, gee, milk is bad for you. But what you're saying is, in a sense, it's probably not if it's in its natural form.
Right. That would be the way that would put it. The more, and of course that's going to be true of every food. No matter what food we talk about in any discussion we have or any video we do, if you take a look at the idea that a lot of people in health will proclaim, which is that in order to be healthy, we need to eat healthy foods. I always want people to push that one more link down the line, and that is that in order for the healthy foods that we eat to in fact be healthy foods, they must have also eaten healthily. And I don't care whether eat means the broccoli is eating good nutrients from organic fertilizers, or whether the chicken is eating good foods and is getting to eat insects and worms, or whether the cows, which are basically a grazing animal, and you don't graze corn because cows don't know how to farm. And no animal that doesn't know how to farm is ever going to eat corn. So for us to feed them grains like corn and wheat and other different things is not going to make the milk as healthy, because that's not what the cow's supposed to be eating in nature. So we go one link further away in the chain, that yes, in order to be healthy, we need to eat healthily, but in order for what we eat to be healthy for us, it needed to also be eating healthily, whether it's a plant eating healthily or an animal eating healthily.
All right. Well, let's talk about healthy cows then, and start there. Obviously, and let's talk about history a little bit. Like you had said, for hundreds of years, man has been eating and preparing and making dairy products, whether they be cheese, yogurt, milk.
From cows and goats and,
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And really probably doing quite well with those food supplies. So
where'd the problem come from?
Even 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Look in rural America, there were cows and people were drinking milk and there was no problem.
Right. Very, very true. And the problem did not exist until people wanted to turn it into a business where the milk that you were procuring for your family didn't come from your cows that were grazing out on, your land and eating grass and getting in the sunshine and walking around. We had healthy cows. We had no problems. The problems came in, as many problems have come in, with some degree of industrialization where you start to have cities. And of course, in cities, everybody doesn't have their own cows and their own chickens and everything. So if you want to feed milk, you've got to get it from somebody else's cow. Well, how many cows does somebody want to have? And how crowded do we want to put them together to make life easier and to make it cheaper? And that starts to perpetuate itself and compound itself, and pretty soon you have dairies, which are just outside the city, where you have cows in a filthy environment, walking around in their own excrement, eating whatever they will eat that they can buy cheaply, so they don't have to have so much land that they get enough grass, because they eat it all and it's gone. So unless you have huge numbers of acres where you can keep on rotating them to different areas while some of that grass grows back, you've got to feed them something else. And the something else is not a normal food to the cow, because cows don't get something else's. Cows graze on grass and weeds. So we started to have cows eating things that they had never eaten, which of course makes us have the same problems. We start eating foods that are not foods that we eat normally. We get more health problems. So we're feeding cows things that are not natural to the cow. We overcrowd them. We have them in environments that are filthy.
And I've been to those farms, and you're right. They're walking around in a 4-acre plot, and there's maybe 400 cattle, and there's no grass. It's
no grass.
Slime.
Yep, no grass. Cow dung everywhere. Big troughs of water that occasionally get replaced.
And a big amount of cow dung.
Big amount of cow dung.
There's not even dirt there. It's just kind of a slime. The whole thing is kind of slimy.
So we have a breeding ground for bacteria, and then we're trying to produce a healthy milk. Okay, we have a problem here. In addition to which is very interesting and which is only found in the last few years, if you grain feed a cow, a lot of harmful bacteria will grow in the cow that wouldn't have grown there, and that will actually stop growing and die if you put them back on grass within often as little as a few weeks. So a lot of the problems occurred because we were giving the cow a diet which is not natural to the cow, and so we started having problems with tuberculosis, salmonella, E. coli, or whatever the different bacteria were that would sometimes come into the milk that had never been a problem when the cows were eating correctly. And so all of a sudden, rather than intelligent people going, what's going on here? We never had that problem before. We have to get away from this commercial industrial farming. Well, but they couldn't get away from it. They were trying to make money. They were trying to do it easily, and that means find another way.
Right.
Don't do things correctly again. Find a way to keep doing them wrong if it's cheaper, and add some other wrong to it to compound it, but to get rid of the first wrong, and in comes pasteurization, where we can heat the milk up enough that we can kill a fairly large percentage, not all, but a fairly large percentage of the bad bacteria that are there, along with all of the good bacteria, Acidophilus and Bifidus, which normally are in properly raised cow's milk and help keep the other bacteria out so they're not there. We're killing them also. So a lot of the benefits that people will eat good quality yogurt for, if it says active cultures on it, those were in the milk if they got raw milk.
Right.
But they're not in the pasteurized milk anymore. So what happened was we continually do things more and more incorrectly, and then we have to find ways to make it possible for us to continue to do them in the more economical but more incorrect way, rather than going back to the way that is correct because it costs too much money.
Well, so let me go back to my history lesson then. Louis Pasteur.
Yes.
Okay, back in the late 1800s, I believe.
Don't remember the dates, actually. I should know that date immediately, but I don't.
So he comes around, and obviously they started to say, hey, that milk is no good. It's full of bacteria. And it wasn't because milk's full of bacteria naturally. It's just because
milk is full of bacteria naturally. Acidophilus and Bifidus, healthy bacteria.
Healthy bacteria, okay. But it was because of the way the farms started to develop to generate the quantities of milk that were necessary to feed the quantities of people.
Yes.
So he comes up with this method of pasteurization to kill off those bacteria so that they can then ship that milk and people can drink it.
Yes. Yep. That is, in a nutshell, a good portion of what happened. Although it's interesting that when Pasteur was around, we didn't know a lot about bacteria. So somebody didn't have the microscopes that we have today, or electron microscopes, which can even look at viruses. They couldn't look at bacteria and go, oh, that's E. coli. Oh, that's staph, that's strep. A lot of things that we can do more today, or whether you culture it on specific media, and if it grows on this type of agar, it's this. If it grows on that, it's that. He just looks and he sees the bacteria there. So I wonder how many of the bacteria he looked at were actually not even harmful bacteria. I have not made a study of Louis Pasteur, but what was interesting is a lot of people that have, and there are a couple of books that have been written about what he did, what he said, and some of the things that then got off in the wrong direction. Because he used to say the bacteria is everything, that's the problem. And we had somebody else, Béchamp, who said, no, the bacteria is not the problem, the terrain is the problem. Which in French, he actually said the milieu is the problem. So what he was saying is, if you have a very healthy person whose internal terrain or milieu is working correctly, and you have somebody else who is not as healthy, they may appear to be healthy, but their immune system is not working as well, and you give them each tuberculin bacteria, one gets tuberculosis, the other doesn't. So therefore, it's not the bacteria, it's the body's ability to fight it. Whereas Pasteur was saying, no, it's the bacteria. And this was a big thing. Well, he had the support of more money, more politicians, and therefore his ideas are what came out, even though a lot of researchers know today that Béchamp was much more correct. And as we all know, I mean, here's a very simple statement, whether it has to do with a milk or anything else. If you take somebody that has the flu, and right now they're very contagious. We take the most contagious part of their having the flu. And this person goes into a room full of 1,000 people, and he French kisses every single person in the room. They're not all going to get the flu. And any intelligent person knows that. And even if instead of French kissing them, we were able to pull off saliva, check the number of flu virus particles in everyone, and give every single person the exact same number of viruses, even inject them into their blood, they're still not all going to get the flu. So we know that your immune system, your milieu, your internal terrain is way more important than the pathogen itself.
Uh-huh.
But that's not what modern medicine is based on. Modern medicine is kill the booger. Don't help the body to kill the booger itself.
Right.
And that's the biggest dichotomy between holistic medicine, which is support your body's abilities. You will get sick less often. When you get sick, you'll knock it out faster. Versus, oh, don't worry about that. If you get sick, come see me and I'll give you a tablet.
So regarding Louis Pasteur, I never knew that pasteurization, when they talked about it when we were in school,
right,
was just heat.
Yes.
They made it sound like it was a big thing.
Big thing. There's some big complex thing that gets done to the milk. It gets pasteurized.
Yes,
when
pasteurized.
In fact,
what a big word. and
all that happens is they heat it up. And they heat it up to a temperature which isn't even that hot. And the pasteurization temperatures have changed over the years because they're trying to make it last longer on the shelves. And so, he came up with a particular temperature, and then different states around the country, a different milk commission or some local health department would say, no, in our state, if you're going to pasteurize it, you must pasteurize it to this temperature. So we have all sorts of different degrees to which something gets pasteurized.
So it's temperature and time, right?
It's temperature and time, exactly. It might be a much higher temperature for a lesser amount of time, or a lower temperature for a greater amount of time, and it varies quite a bit. And then, of course, the people that produce dairy products that have them on our shelves, everything costs less if we can make it not go bad. The more of a produce, whether of course normally we say produce, we mean vegetables, but the more of a product that doesn't go bad, the less that goes bad, the cheaper we can make it. Because for everything we have to throw out, that gets
in the big mix,
that all gets taken into how much we're going to charge for stuff. Right. So if less goes bad, we can charge less. So if we can do something to make something last longer, it makes everything cheaper. So they came up with ultra pasteurized. So now you go to the store and the milk is mostly pasteurized, but most of the cream has been ultra pasteurized. Well, why do they do that? Well, because milk people drink a lot of, and cream, people put a small amount of in their coffee and tea.
Or use it to cook or whatever, yeah.
You use it to cook. So the half a gallon of milk, you got a family of kids that like milk, or you get somebody that loves milk like myself. I drink an average of 6 quarts of milk a week. Milk's never going to go bad in my house. But if I buy a thing of cream that I'm going to put in with some herbal tea, that might take a month before I use it all up. So we want it to last longer, so they ultra pasteurize. So they further destroy it by heating it even more.
Uh-huh. Okay, so there's pasteurization, and that came around really at a big commercial level, probably in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, right?
And interestingly enough, and I haven't been able to find proof of this, although a lot of people have this as a quote. They claim that on his deathbed, Louis Pasteur recanted his statement that the pathogen is everything and said, I was wrong, the terrain or the milieu is everything. But every time I try to get, and this has been written in a number of books, and every time I try to get somebody to show me, okay, he may have said that, and that would be great, and he would be an intelligent person to realize that he was wrong and to recant, but I want to find where that came from. I can't seem to find anything to verify that he, in fact, did realize he was wrong and that the terrain is more important.
So the pasteurization now, what we talked about, as it came about to be a mandate by law.
Yes, yeah.
It not only kills the bacteria that were going to be harmful that were found in the cow's milk due to the unsanitary conditions and the food that they're eating and the fact that the cow itself was really not healthy.
Right, whichever ones might or might not have been there because you don't know, yeah.
But also the helpful bacteria, as you were describing.
Kills all the good guys, so it kills the acidophilus, it kills the bifidus. It also kills all the enzymes, which is very, very important. So it does a couple of different things which have a very large effect on the health of the milk. So we'll start with the Lactobacillus acidophilus and Bifidobacteria bifidus. And what happens is that if you take, and this is an experiment that I sometimes have my students do, if you take a really good quality raw milk, and the best quality raw milk I've ever seen in my life is Organic Pastures, and they've got a website, organicpastures.com. They are in California, and Organic Pastures is a dairy where the cows graze on grass. If there's a time of year that they can't get quite enough grass out there because of weather, then they'll get some hay, but they're not going to get a whole bunch of garbage like corn or something else. They're outdoors all the time. The owner actually developed the first and only machine that goes to the cows, so they don't even have to be herded indoors to some place with a bunch of cow pies and stuff around and not fresh air to be milked. They're milked outdoors. The mobile milking machine goes to them. It's a phenomenal idea. So we've got grass-fed organic milk, which does not get pasteurized. It's raw. And so his milk is loaded with acidophilus and bifidus. And he has never, ever had anybody ever get sick or a single complaint to the California Milk Board or anybody else about anybody getting sick from his milk. But there was one time that his milk didn't come into the stores. And I called up Organic Pastures and I spoke to the boss and I said, what's going on? And he said, David, because of your knowledge, you're going to love this. He said the commission that comes in and tests the milk, the health department, doesn't use a bacteria-specific test. They just test for bacteria count. Our bacteria count on this particular milking, for some reason, was way higher than normal. And so they failed it, and they said, you can't send this out. We couldn't figure this out. It didn't make any sense to us because since our cows are grass-fed, and since the good bacteria crowd out the bad bacteria, we've never had any pathogenic bacteria ever appear in any independent lab tests of our milk. So we immediately sent it out to a couple labs and had it tested. And they also couldn't find any disease-producing bacteria, but they said that there was a much higher amount of Lactobacillus acidophilus and bifidus than normal for some reason. So basically, anybody that would have bought it if they'd allowed them to sell it would have gotten all the benefits of yogurt.
So it was healthier milk.
So it was healthier milk.
But the California Board of Dairy Board didn't know how to handle it.
They don't test for bad bacteria. It's just like when they do, just for a quick tangent, in the United States, if you've got a swimming pool that because you've got a health club is open to the public, they don't check bacteria count. That would make sense. check the bacteria, make sure that there's no bacteria there. They check the chlorine level. So if you want to use ozone or some other healthy method of keeping the bacteria down at 0 like they do in Europe, because chlorine is so toxic and increases cancer risks, you can't do it because they're not going to check the bacteria count. They're going to check the chlorine level, and if you're not using chlorine, the chlorine level isn't high enough and you can't open your pool. So it's the same kind of nonsense where they're not checking the bacteria type, they're just checking the bacteria, and they had so many healthy bacteria, they said, oh, there's too much bacteria in this milk, you can't sell it, and actually it would have been the healthiest milk they'd ever sold.
So that, and relating to milk then, of course, not only that milk, that natural organic milk,
right?
Again, and again, we can talk.
Yeah,
a
we're
little
going to
bit
go over the differences between organic and raw and grass-fed.
and we really should.
Yes.
But also the milk itself has, I understand. I've done a little bit of reading about this. Has some kind of enzymes in it that help it protect itself against
yes
going bad and
yes.
other bad things. The actual milk itself kind of keeps itself clean.
Yes, the milk. Well, the good bacteria crowd out the bad bacteria, and what's fascinating, and this is the experiment I sometimes have people do. I say, buy a half gallon of organic pastures milk, and don't open it, and buy a quart or a half gallon of the best pasteurized milk you can find, even organic pasteurized milk, whichever brand, and put them in the back of your refrigerator and don't open either one of them. Leave them there for a month. And at the end of a month, open up the organic pasteurized milk and smell it. It stinks to high hell. It's gone rancid. Because that's what happens if you kill off all the good bacteria, then what's left starts to decay and turns rancid, and it will get you sick. It is bad for you. Okay, that's the really good pasteurized organic milk. Now open up the raw organic milk. And it has not turned rancid. It has lacto-fermented, just like yogurt does. The beneficial bacteria, even in the refrigerator, they don't grow as fast in the refrigerator. Outside, it would have happened much quicker. But they have slowly changed over and grown immensely. And we now have what used to be called clabbered milk or sour milk. And it will taste sour. It will not get anybody sick. It is even better for you than the other milk. But a lot of people don't like sour milk. Milk tastes sweet. So people won't drink it. But it's actually even better for you than it was before, and the other stuff will get you sick. Because the good bacteria has continued to grow and protect the milk, and we've got huge amounts of colonies of good bacteria, as opposed to the organic pasteurized milk, which has turned rancid and will get you sick.
Right. And again, the key word is pasteurize there.
The key word is pasteurizing. And there are people that have done some, and I don't know whether the studies were ever published, but there are people that have done some small studies years and years ago where they took calves away from their mothers, and they fed some of the calves some raw milk that was milked from a different cow, and they fed some of the milk some organic pasteurized milk from the store. And the ones that were simply fed raw milk from another cow thrived and did fine, and the ones that were fed organic milk from another cow, by the time we got to a couple of months, some of them were getting very ill and some died.
Pasteurized milk.
Pasteurized milk. Because when you pasteurize the milk, you are destroying a lot of its nutritional value. So it is no longer able to even keep a healthy calf. And I look at things sometimes in different ways than the public, just to make it easier for us to think of something. If a food happens to have been designed by whoever somebody wants to be, God, nature, I don't care, for a specific purpose. And nobody would ever argue that milk is a designed food. It was designed to nourish the young of the species. If it is designed for a specific purpose, and we do something to it, such that it alter it, such that it can no longer healthfully carry out its purpose, how can it be good for us still?
Right. And so the key is, or the negative is, it's the pasteurization process, not only destroying the positive bacteria, but also you mentioned enzymes and a couple other things that are present in the milk.
Enzymes, what happens is a lot of people can't drink milk. And there are many different reasons for us not to be able to consume a food. Some people can be allergic to a food, where they actually have a histamine reaction to that food. It snuffs up their nose and their eyes get red and fluffy and everything. And that's an actual histamine reaction. They're producing histamine. Somebody takes an antihistamine. So they're truly allergic to the food. But a lot of people that can't drink milk can't drink it because of what is said to be a lactose intolerance.
Right.
Lactose is milk sugar. Anything that ends in OSE is a sugar. Maltose, lactose, fructose, glucose, etc. And lactose is milk sugar. And most people, depending on their origin, where their ancestors came from, not most people, but many people, Asians, blacks, a lot of people, because of their ancestry, don't produce very much, or sometimes any, of the lactase enzyme, which is necessary to properly break down the lactose milk sugar. They don't have it in their body, and when it can't be properly broken down, they get a detrimental effect and they get ill from it. The body can't digest it and they don't feel good. Mm-hmm. There's lots of what is necessary for the production of lactase and the lactase itself in the milk. It's already there. So if you drink raw milk and you are lactose intolerant, you will almost never have a problem because your body can take the milk and do what it needs with it. But if you pasteurize the milk, you have now destroyed the lactase enzyme and any ability for any of it to be produced, and now you've created the problem. So the milk was not the problem. The milk had in it everything you needed to properly digest and assimilate the lactose. It was cooking the milk, which they choose to call pasteurization, that turned it into something that now gives people a problem. So the problem isn't that you're lactose intolerant, the problem is you're eating cooked milk, which is called pasteurized.
So the milk really is a good food.
Milk is a very good food, like any food. I mean, there really isn't a substance out there. I don't care what the food is. There isn't any kind of food that somebody may not be allergic to. One person, his favorite food is blueberries. The other person's allergic. One person, their favorite food is peanuts. The next person, if they're even in a room with peanuts, they have an anaphylactic reaction and they have to have an injection from an EpiPen or they go to the hospital. I mean, anybody can be allergic to anything. So, certainly milk is no different than any other food. You could truly be allergic to milk, and I have a couple of patients and students that even grass-fed, organic, raw milk, they have a reaction to. But that's a tiny number of people, whereas the number of people that have reactions to pasteurized milk, even if it's organic, that's large. And then you have the people in the middle who are actually having an intolerance to the denatured proteins, where the denaturing is caused by the cooking or pasteurization, or some of the residues of some of the herbicides or pesticides that are in there because it wasn't organic. So those people might be able to actually drink a really good quality organic milk, such as a milk from Organic Valley, which as organic companies go is one of the best. They might be able to drink the Organic Valley milk, even though it isn't raw, because they have the enzyme, but they were reacting to some of the things that are in milk that's fed that isn't organic. So there are 2 or 3 different problems here. But to me, any milk which if you feed baby cows is not going to healthfully sustain them, I don't want to drink.
Well, let's talk about the other word that's associated with milk. The other process is homogenization.
Homogenization.
And tell me about that. And what does that mean? And
Sure.
What does that do?
Well, the word homogeneous means to make everything similar. So if we're homogenizing it, we're trying to make all of the milk similar. Whereas if you have regular milk that has not been homogenized, the fat and the milk are different, and the fat will slowly rise to the top of non-homogenized milk, and you will have a cream layer on top. Well, it's interesting, but in the same way that for some reason a long time ago we got this idea that white is beautiful, which is a bunch of nonsense. Because if white is beautiful, that would mean that cauliflower is good for you, but broccoli isn't. I mean, it's just a stupid statement. But molasses, we got to pull the molasses out of the sugar. We want white sugar because white is better for you. You want white flour. And every time we do that, of course, we make the food worse because all the nutrients that were there got removed to make something white. But, we have these belief systems. Well, another belief system, which is being perpetrated on the public, is everything has to be easy. We shouldn't have to do anything more than necessary in order to live a healthy life. Well, sorry, health is not convenient, and you have to do more things that are necessary. But what is one of the things that we have to do if we have milk that has not been homogenized? You have to shake it. Because after it's been sitting for 45 minutes to a few hours, the cream layer slowly comes up to the top, and oh my goodness, God forbid, you have to shake the milk. Takes, 5 seconds because it's meant to be in solution normally. So it goes into solution instantly. And of course I know that because I shake my milk many times a day. I grab the organic pastures milk out of the refrigerator, cha-chunk, 1 second, bing, it's all mixed in there. You don't have to sit there and go like this. It goes into solution instantly. But God forbid the American public should have to do anything before they open something and drink it. So we homogenize milk so that it doesn't separate anymore. It makes it easier for the poor American public because you no longer have to shake it. So we blast it through small stainless steel holes against a stainless steel background to pulverize the particles of cream into particles that are so small, smaller than they occur in nature, they're not supposed to be that way, that they no longer will separate. We've now made it into a homogeneous mix. The problem is that a couple of things have been looked at, one of which is that there's a chemical that's, the abbreviation is XO, which is xanthine oxidase, which is shown to possibly be a cancer-causing chemical, and which exists in milk in the butterfat, but that the body can't remove it from the butterfat. It just passes through the body intact. But when you homogenize it and break up the particles, the body now has access to the xanthine oxidase. So it is very possible, according to some of the people that looked at that research, hasn't been a huge amount, nobody wants to duplicate it because they don't want to tell us that milk might be bad for us if they pasteurize it or if they homogenize it. But it is possible that the pasteurization of milk makes it even worse for us than just, that the homogenization makes it even worse for us than just pasteurizing it, because now it allows xanthine oxidase to be absorbed into the body, which may be a cancer-causing agent. But why bother? Let's shake the milk. What's the big deal?
Right. So the homogenization process is relatively new. I mean, I remember I grew up and I always shook the milk.
Yes. When I was a child, I'm 53. Right. This is 2005 right now, toward the end of it, and I'm 53. When I was a kid, my parents used to get furious with me because the milkman would bring the 6 quarts glass bottles of milk to the door, ring the bell once to let us know he was there, and I would dash out, open the door up, open one of the quarts of milk and start drinking the cream off the tops of the milk. And everybody would get furious with me, because I love the cream. It was delicious. I still do, but they would get a little bit pissed because I was doing that. And of course, like you said, that's the way it came if you got a milk delivery. Now, it didn't always. They were still homogenizing milk in the stores. But if you got milk delivery, and depending on the brand, they didn't bother to do that. It's not necessary for health in any way, shape, or form.
I think some of the smaller dairies didn't have that technology.
Right. And there wasn't any reason to put in the ability to homogenize something because it didn't make it keep long. I mean, it didn't do anything beneficial.
Right. And so we used to get, when I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, there was a dairy that had their own trucks. And you got milk from them, and they would deliver it to your house, just like we said.
And I grew up in the Rotten Apple, which is non-rural Manhattan on the corner of 89th Street and Broadway.
So the homogenization process is bad. Pasteurization is not good.
Right.
Tell us about the milk, organic, raw, and what does that mean? And what does organic really mean? Yeah,
organic is an interesting designation, because if we went back 100 years or more, everything that we ate before we started fertilizing with chemical fertilizers, when either things weren't fertilized and they would just move the plot of land to some fertile land and plow things up there, everything was automatically organic. When people learned that they could put on chicken manures, when they learned about cover crops where you would grow a bunch of different types of grasses and let that land, what's called lay fallow, for one season, and they'd grow things over there. And in this particular planting area, we've got a bunch of things growing, and then we'd plow them in, and that would re-nourish the soil. So this was all organic. Everything was organic until we started to use commercial fertilizers. Now that organic has become a legislated term, basically, now we have to be careful, because as soon as something gets legislated, it has specific parameters. And as long as it meets those parameters of the legislation, we can use that term, even though somebody that used that term 30 years ago might look at what we're calling organic and going, that's not very organic. Boy, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not putting in this fertilizer, you're calling that organic? but the legislature decides of a particular state that, yes, as long as we do that, we can call it organic. So we have to be careful. So organic, for the most part, and again, there are different organic standards, but for the most part, what organic says is that no pesticide, herbicide, or fungicide, that particular organic jurisdiction doesn't say can't be used, gets used. If they say those can't be used, they don't get used. So none of the non-organic ones get used. So now we can say it's organic as far as that's concerned. If you're going to use any kind of pesticide, it has to be an organic approved pesticide. So maybe they're spraying an oil spray on something, or maybe they're spraying a bacteria that kills a specific type of grub, but supposedly doesn't hurt us. Or maybe they're planting companion crops like garlic or onions where the smell exhibits something that certain bugs don't like. They're doing something that's okay to be organic. Then they can't use any fertilizers that are of chemical origin. So it has to be an approved organic fertilizer. However, if somebody that really is well versed in organic, I did a lot of organic work. I started organic gardening when I was 12 years old. And I would put on bat manure, which is called bat guano, because it's very high in nitrogen. Got to be careful, it'll burn the roots, you have to mix it in. I would use sheep manure. I would use chicken manure. I would never use steer manure, which is used a lot right now because it's a very poor organic fertilizer. It's way too high in sodium, not good for the plants or the people.
We used to use in Pennsylvania fish emulsions.
Fish emulsions, yes, we use fish emulsions a lot. There are a lot of fish emulsions where they'll grind fish up, let it ferment for a while, put it in a container. Right. Then we would use things like ground meal of different species, such as shrimp meal and lobster meal, and the skins and husks of different types of sea creatures that would be ground up because in the ocean we've got all the trace minerals. Right. They may not be in the soil anymore because we're guarding so much, they're still in the ocean. So we'd grind up the shrimp, you'd grind up the lobster meal, the husk of the lobster, other different crustaceans, grind that up, and that would bring in all the trace minerals that were otherwise missing. So we bring those things in. Rock phosphate, rock potash, green sand, all sorts of different nutrients, organic sulfur, to bring in everything that's missing. Now we have, especially if you're doing testing, and you're having the Agricultural Extension Service check to make sure there isn't anything missing. Maybe you want to make sure there's enough boron in there because it helps people with osteoporosis. So you want to make sure it's all there. That would all be organic. But now, in order for it to be called organic, we just have to make sure that what is used is allowed to be called organic. So if the really good organic companies, such as the ones which are still gardening the way we did for centuries and not just trying to make it as cheap as possible, they did things beautifully. But the commercial organic, which is what a lot of stuff is now, they just have to make sure that whatever is used is approved organic. And even if 3 or 4 things are missing that would make it better, doesn't matter. You're not required to put certain things in if it's organic. Organic just says certain things may not be used, because if you put them in, it's not called organic. So maybe a good organic farmer is using 7 or 8 different organic soil amendments, and the commercial organic farmer is maybe using 3. But the 3 he's using or she's using are approved, and so they can call it organic. So we now have commercial organic, which isn't anywhere near as good as the really good quality organics that some people still do. That's why I like, again, Organic Valley is a dairy I happen to really like because they don't try to fudge on some of the organic standards like some of the other dairies, which I won't mention so we don't get sued, do.
Okay, so the idea then, when you're looking for organic, you're looking for someone who is not taking any shortcuts in a sense, and,
right.
And like you said, replenishing the soil. So an organic dairy who has cows feeding, would they be, tell us how that works. Is the grass they're eating grown organically?
Okay, well that's a good point. Depending on the part of the country you're in, that will completely vary what you have to do in order to supply grass and weeds to your dairy cattle. Because in large portions of the country, not where we live here in San Diego, which is basically built on a desert, where if you want anything to grow, you have to irrigate it.
Just water it.
We got to water it. But in other parts of the country where there's plenty of rain all year round, we get our what do we get? Rain. We get maybe 20 days of rain a year.
Right.
But in other parts of the country, all they have to do is rotate the areas that the cows are grazing. So after they eat all of the grass down in one area, the seeds are still there. It's going to rain again. Stuff's going to grow back up. So as they start to have less to eat, then they just herd them over to another area because they've got, hundreds or thousands of acres, and they let them eat there. And they herd them to another area, and they let them eat there. And they have to have anywhere from 3 to 5 different areas that they can allow the cows to go to as rain will come down and grass will grow back in the other areas. And of course, they're not fertilizing very often at all because you're not growing that type of crop. They can't use any kind of non-organic approved substances. They can't be right next to somebody's non-organic farm where pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides would be wafting over and hitting the grass that the organic cattle are grazing on. So they have to be far enough away from people. And they're not really growing organic grass. It's just growing itself, and they're rotating the cattle around.
Right. Okay. So then the cattle themselves then are eating natural food.
Natural foods, natural to the cow.
Natural to the cows. Then I understand that a lot of cattle, or a lot of these cows, as they are in these huge dairy farms, because of the environment they're in, the conditions they're in, they get sick.
Oh yeah.
And they give those cows antibiotics and hormones to help them produce more milk.
Well, antibiotics are given to the cows. Basically, most cows in commercial dairies are given hormones to greatly increase the amount of milk production because that makes the milk cheaper, which I personally in the United States can't quite understand because I've been led to believe that we are still subsidizing dairies to make milk cheap, and milk sometimes gets spilled out to keep the price up there. We have plenty of milk. There is no legitimate reason in the United States that I know of to give a hormone to make the cows produce more. But what happens is we give these hormones.
Except for the dairy lobby.
Except for the dairy lobby, right. Yep, we give these hormones, bovine gonadotrophic hormone. That's a growth hormone that makes them produce much more milk. They are, of course, are not going to be as healthy. They don't have as long a lifespan, but they don't care. They're producing more milk. That doesn't matter. And a lot of the dairy farmers and the milk lobby will say, well, but there are hormones in cows anyway. Well, yeah, there are. There are hormones in you. There are hormones in me. We've all got hormones in us. And the hormones don't really affect anything because they'd be there anyway. Well, no, that's not exactly true, because what happens is that because the cow is being milked for more ounces or gallons or whatever per week or per day than they're meant to, because they're producing more and you have to milk it out, the udders that you're milking from end up getting sore and irritated. And they have to use antibiotics and steroid creams on the sores that develop on the udders. And that stuff does get residual in there, into the milk.
Uh-huh.
So we've got all sorts of different things going on where somebody will say, oh, well, we've analyzed the milk and it doesn't really have a hormone level that's different from another. First of all, I believe that's a lie, because the German analyses, where they won't allow a lot of our products in Germany because they're stricter than we are, will say, oh, no. You're checking parts per million, we're checking parts per billion because we found it affects our community. Or you're checking parts per billion of something, we're checking parts per trillion because we found that affects the health of our people. So, you can decide something's not there by not looking for it too much. On the other hand, the residues of some of the other chemicals that they're using to treat the udders and the antibiotics that they use in there because the cows are being milked more than they should and are getting sick, there are residues there. The German studies know it, and I don't want it. I don't want it in my milk.
So do the cows produce more milk because they are given these this artificial food source that they really overfeed them? Then they're able to overmilk them. They give them these hormones to help them create more milk.
The hormone is the main reason. The hormone is used to help them produce a lot more milk. The feeding, well, they're probably eating more because of what they're having to produce.
There's more available.
There's more available.
Yeah.
The antibiotics are because they're doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. They're producing more milk. They're eating in a lousy area. They are all confined. They get sick more often. They get antibiotics. But the main reason they're producing more milk is the hormone, whose purpose is to make them produce more milk.
Okay, so they do it. They inject them with that, or they just give it to them in their feed?
They've done both, and I don't know whether they're currently doing both or they're doing one. I know that a lot of cattle are given antibiotics in their food on a daily basis to make sure that there's an antibiotic level in them all the time to prevent them from getting sick as often. And every dairy does whatever they want to do as long as it's legal, which way too much is legal.
Okay, so now you...
Oh, plus one more thing is that if it's not organic, if it's organic, at least the corn they're feeding them is organic corn. If it's not organic, then probably most and possibly all of the corn that they're being fed is genetically modified, because huge percentage of the corn and soy and cotton and canola in the United States is genetically modified crops, and they're telling us it's not a problem, but the research has proven it's a problem. There's a fabulous book that was written on it, specifically on genetically modified crops in the United States, and it's actually astounding because we supposedly have a free press, but there's more freedoms in some ways in Europe than we have. So the Europeans know more. They know more about the effects of consuming genetically modified foods. And so the big conglomerates, like the Kraft Foods divisions that are over there, they've stopped using all the genetically modified foods in Europe because they know that they'll be able to sell more. It's all still being used here. So there's a book that was written called Seeds of Deception by Jeff Smith that goes over all of the research having to do with genetically modified foods. And then he came out with a video called The Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals that goes over all this. It's very scary because they're interviewing scientists from around the world. They're not just making stuff up. They're interviewing scientists, and you listen to all this and you go, oh my God. And the American public is not being told any of this because it is not in big business's best interest for us to know about it. And they don't even, we're trying, we being the entire holistic community. I mean, I'm not a very political person. I sit in my office, help people get well. I lecture to medical groups, and I give classes and I do videos. But the entire holistic community is trying to get legislation passed that, as it is in Europe, would require that if you have a food that is a genetically modified food, that something says genetically modified corn, genetically modified beef, whatever it is, so that the public can do something that we've always wanted to be, that we talk about a lot, which is that you talk with your wallet.
You make a choice.
By make a choice and not buy it. And they don't want that to be done because they don't want anybody to be knowing about this, because they want to keep on doing it. So as of now, you don't have a clue whether the food that you're buying contains genetically modified crops, and all of the different things it will do to your health, which they say it won't, but read the book.
Right.
You don't know anything about it.
And this is a relatively new phenomenon, really, within the last 5 to 10 years.
Relatively new. It's been done for over a decade, but a lot more recently.
So back to the organic pasture, the organic milk. Your goal is to buy milk that is raw.
Right.
And a lot of people are scared of that.
Yes.
And they're thinking, I'm going to get sick from raw milk.
A lot of people are terrified. And of course, it doesn't help to alleviate their worry, their fears, by the fact that in those few states, California is one of the few states in the country that actually has in our health regulations that raw milk shall be available to the public. So we are allowed to sell raw milk here. Most other states, it is either completely illegal, or it is allowed to be sold with a disclaimer on it that says, for the use of pets only. So a lot of people are drinking milk that says pet food on it because it's the only way they can get raw milk. But, although it is legal here, the Medical Milk Commission that had been established a long time ago and is no longer in force right now, they had passed an ordinance which was that a warning label has to be on the milk. Not because the milk is unhealthy, not because any of the things that it says on there are even true, just because the big dairies had more pressure and power and money than the little dairies. And they don't want people to think raw milk is better because they're selling pasteurized, homogenized milk. So they got this warning label on there that basically says, warning, the milk in this container has not been pasteurized, and so it may contain disease-producing bacteria, and it therefore is unhealthy and not recommended for people that have a jeopardized immune system, and then they cite some people that might have a jeopardized immune system, such as the very young, the very old, people on steroids, and people on antacids. To their credit, I'm glad that they were smart enough to know that if you're on any kind of steroid, your immune system's not working correctly. And if you're on any kind of antacid, Tums, Rolaids, I don't care what it is, Tagamet, Nexium, any kind of antacid, your immune system is not working correctly. So they're smart enough to say that, but people don't read it and go, oh, really? Because I take an antacid, my immune system isn't working correctly? That's right. And we know it so much that it's even on a government label, because the acid in your stomach, one of its purposes is to kill disease-producing bacteria that are everywhere, they're everywhere, and that may be on some of the food we eat. Hell, there's some in your mouth right now, and if you're killing those acids or reducing them, you're more likely to get sick. So I'm glad at least they know that and they put it on there, but the other part is totally bogus, and I actually spoke to one of the doctors who was one of the main people in the Medical Milk Commission, because they were thinking of reorganizing it, and I was just offering my services. I said, if you want, I'll be happy to be on it. And I spoke to the doctor, and this is a physician who was a pediatrician and did a lot of research on the benefits of breastfeeding. And he said, oh yes, my entire family eats nothing but raw milk, he said, and I was against that label, because really, the people with jeopardized immune systems, we need to support their immune system in any way possible. What's a good way to do that? If they're going to drink milk, make it good quality raw milk.
Uh-huh. Well, just the word raw milk sounds much, I guess, not worse, but much more volatile than pasteurized.
Yes, which is so interesting, because let's say you're going to the store and your wife says, while you're at the store, do me a favor. There are a couple things I want you to pick up. Would you please pick up a head of raw cauliflower? I would like you to get a raw kabocha squash. A couple pounds of raw broccoli would be good. And get me some raw chives, some raw onions, and a bunch of raw bananas. Well, obviously, that's stupid. She's not going to say that.
Right.
But why not? Those are all raw. Why aren't we saying it? Because we have now been conditioned that the normal milk is the pasteurized milk. So we don't call it pasteurized milk, just like we don't call it raw broccoli.
Right.
We simply call it milk. So pick up some broccoli, cauliflower, and a bunch of bananas. You don't have to designate anything with another verb or adjective, because those are standard. Whereas if you're picking up milk, we say pick up a half a gallon of milk. Again, that's the standard. But if we want regular milk, which to me is regular milk, we have to say pick up raw milk, which is totally backwards. So we have to put another designator on there, the word raw, if we want the stuff that hasn't been fussed with by, commercial people.
Right.
But if we're buying broccoli or cauliflower, we don't have to do that, because we are pushing the public into whichever little nook and cranny we want them to be in, and we, and I don't mean we, I mean commercial food conglomerates, want people to understand that broccoli and cauliflower, that's the regular way, and milk, pasteurized, homogenized, that's the regular way. Where of course that's not the regular way. You had to cook it, you had to rip it apart, you had to check the amount of butter, you had to do all sorts of different things. There was actually an article that was written in the LA Times in 2000 called Is Milk Still Milk? And you can actually still find that article up there. And they talk about all the ways that what we think is just plain ordinary milk has been ripped apart, put back together, so that no matter what brand you buy in any store around the country, no matter what name it says on there, if they all say whole milk, they all taste the same.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you had 5 different dairy farms, even in the same state,
right,
maybe even in the same city, and because the grass varieties that they were eating were slightly different, and the amount of sun on them was slightly different, they might all taste slightly different to somebody, if there's anybody left still, that has a good discerning palate. They might be able to tell you which dairy they came from, just like a good wine taster can taste 3 different Bordeaux's or 3 different Chardonnays and tell you which one they are. Milk is not supposed to taste the same every time. No natural food should always taste the same, because it's not. But we want it to taste exactly the same, because it sells better if everybody knows when they grab it, it's going to taste exactly like that.
Well, also the economics of the industry to be able to package, transport, ship, store,
Right.
distribute, it really lends itself to, hey, let's make this a cookie cutter deal.
Yes, let's make it a cookie cutter. Exactly. Cookie cutter deal makes it easier.
Because we can sell billions of dollars of it, and it's less work, and we'll make more money.
And you don't have to worry about somebody tasting it and go, oh, this milk doesn't taste like the one that I had yesterday. I don't like it.
Right.
Now, if somebody goes and eats, what do we have that varies a fair amount? You can get carrots with all sorts of different flavors and sweetnesses. You can get apples that taste delicious, or that taste delicious but less sweet, or that taste sour, or that taste so mealy you wish you hadn't bitten into it. You can have a mango that tastes stringy, or the mango that doesn't, a sweeter one or a not sweet one. You can have plums that taste all sorts of different variations. They're natural products. If you eat a natural product, it should vary. Milk is a natural product until we screw it up. It shouldn't taste exactly the same.
Is milk as we eat it today, as it's delivered today in a pasteurized form, is it really a food anymore?
Well, it's a food. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a food, because people are eating it as a food. Is it a healthy food, which of course is what you meant? No, I don't think it is. And when I have people that ask me, if that warning label scares me, can I just buy, you said Organic Valley is a really good brand of dairy products. Can I just buy the Organic Valley organic pasteurized milk? Because the raw worries me. And, you know, the answer I generally give is, well, milk was designed by nature to feed baby cows, baby goats, baby humans, if it's breast milk from a human. If something has been done to that so that it will no longer do that job anymore, I don't consider it a wholesome food anymore. And if you take even the really good milks, and I like Organic Valley, they're a good company, I eat their cheeses, I use their cream, you know, I mean, all the time. But as far as milk is concerned, it won't properly nourish a baby calf throughout its normal weaning period. Even colostrum. Colostrum is all of the immunoglobulins that come out during the first 6 hours to 36 hours after the birth of the young of a mammal. And calves will die if they don't get their colostrum. So if you take it away from mommy immediately and give it milk from another calf, from another cow, then there's colostrum. They just gave birth also. They're going to get their colostrum. If not, if you bring it to a cow that hasn't sired any calf within 3 or 4 days, so there really isn't any colostrum coming out, you have to give that calf some colostrum that maybe came from one that just gave birth, or from some colostrum that was, you know, made into a tablet or capsule. Well, the colostrum isn't in any of the milks that you buy either. So there's a whole bunch of different issues in there. So I always want people to eat as much better than they currently are as they're willing to make the changes for. You know, I mean, you can't change everybody. I eat very, very well. I don't eat perfectly. I sometimes have desserts that are not perfect for me. I'm human also, but many, you know, fewer than most people. But if somebody says, we normally go to, you know, Vaughn's, Alpha Beta, Safeway, whatever, and get whatever garbage milk they're selling, wouldn't it be better if I got Organic Valley's whole milk for my children than that? Of course it would. It would be way better. But if somebody says, is it almost as good as the raw? No, I can't say that it's almost as good. I would say it's a couple really, really big steps down. It's just way better than what you were giving them before.
How about cheese and yogurt? Obviously part of the dairy family, and obviously something that people eat. And hey, you know, cheese is a big part of our diet for thousands and thousands of years.
Yes,
they speak about cheese in the Bible.
Cheese has been used for a long, long time. And of course, just like the raw milk that I said put it in the back of your refrigerator for a month, and the Acidophilus and Bifidus lacto-ferment it, well, cheese is also a fermentation process. We're actually allowing different cultures to turn the milk or the cream or both, depending on what it is that's being made, into that cheese. So if we talk about a real cheese and not a fake cheese, and to me a fake cheese is any cheese in which it wasn't cultured and the bacteria didn't ferment it into a cheese. So we have a couple of fake cheeses which in a perfect world would not be allowed to be called cheese. So for example, American cheese, as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as American cheese. It's American garbage. It's not American cheese, because American cheese is a processed cheese, which means it isn't really a cheese. It is not fermented into a cheese. It is manufactured in a lab, basically. So that's not cheese. So anything that says processed cheese is not truly a cheese. So if you go to Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, any of these places, and it says, you know, have a cheddar burger, and there's a little asterisk next to the word cheddar, and you go down here on the bottom, you know, where's the asterisk? Oh, there's the asterisk. Processed cheddar.
Tastes like cheddar.
You know, so it's not really cheese, it's a processed cheese. So I pull those out. That's not cheese. But as long as we're talking about a real cheese, cheeses are much healthier. The problem, again, is some people may have a problem with the cheese because there is still going to be some amount of lactose in there, although not a lot, because the bacteria are eating up the lactose as part of the process of making the yogurt, the kefir, which is a liquid yogurt drink, the cheese, etc. So a lot of people that are lactose intolerant can, in fact, eat the cheeses, but the healthiest cheeses are, of course, going to be those that say on the label, made from raw milk.
Unpasteurized.
Unpasteurized milk. And it doesn't say unpasteurized, it says raw. So Organic Valley makes a raw milk cheddar, which is much healthier for you, as well as a pasteurized, because they have to be in business. People want it.
Sure.
And Altadena makes some raw milk cheddar cheeses and a couple of other cheeses. And the Winchester Cheese Company makes a number of raw milk Goudas. So there are a lot of different. You go to a good health food store like Whole Foods. Or in San Diego, Jimbo's or Ocean Beach People's Foods. We have a number of them here. But Whole Foods, of course, and Wild Oats are known around the country. There's lots of foods in health food stores that are not good for you. You can easily eat real garbage from a health food store. However, that's the place that you would go to the cheese area and ask this, somebody behind the cheese counter, what cheeses do you have that are made from raw milk? Because it may not say on all of them. So if you get the raw milk cheeses, those are the best for you unless you do what to them?
Pasteurize them? Or?
Unless you cook them.
Unless you cook them.
So somebody can go and spend some money and get a really good raw milk cheese, like an Organic Valley raw milk cheddar, and use it to make their eggplant parmesan and put it in the oven at 250 degrees. And it's not raw milk cheddar anymore. 250 is hotter than ultra pasteurization.
Uh-huh.
So you just killed all the things that were protected making the raw milk cheese. It may still be a better cheese than a lot of others if it was made by a good company, but it's not a raw milk cheese anymore. So people need to understand. I've actually had patients call me up and say, I don't understand, David. You taught me that milk doesn't have to cause me a problem, that if I drink the raw milk, I no longer have all these different digestive issues that I was getting before because the lactase enzyme is there in the raw milk. But the other day, I had some of the raw milk and all of my problems came back. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense. What'd you do? Well, we made some clam chowder, and we used the raw milk. And a lot of people have said this to me. So this is not just like, I'm not just saying this is a joke to get it on the tape. Right. This has happened over and over again. And I said, I need you to listen to what you just said. Okay, you made some clam chowder. So the way you made the clam chowder was you put clams into the raw milk, and then you added whatever spices you wanted, and then you put it in the refrigerator. And I wait. And the patient says, no, then I put it on the stove. I go, okay, you put it on the stove. And what did you do when you put it on the stove? And usually now they get it and they go, oh my God, I cooked it.
Well, that's
it's
right
not
back,
raw milk anymore.
That's right back to the whole theory that the word pasteurization sounds so scientific.
Right.
When in turn all it is heating.
Well, that's a good point. I never thought about that. That's a very good point. Somebody might think, but I didn't pasteurize it. That's some innocuous thing that they do that's special. All I did was cook it. Yes. And when in fact, as we said before, pasteurization is simply heating it to a certain temperature. And not only did they pasteurize it, but they ultra pasteurized it.
So, okay, so you've got cheeses, obviously looking for raw milk cheeses.
Right.
Unpasteurized.
Right. You can't get raw milk yogurt. You'd have to make your own. That's an interesting little conundrum.
Oh, why?
Because what happens is, in order to make sure, and this goes back to everything's got to be exactly the same. Don't let the consumer open something going, this doesn't look like the one I opened last week. So in order to make sure that yogurt is the way they want it to be, and that every batch comes out the same, we have to kill any bacteria that's in the milk, no matter how good they are. and introduce the right amount of the specific bacteria that they're going to use to make their yogurt. Because otherwise it's going to be different every time. So the first process in the procedure of manufacturing yogurt is scald the milk. They have to kill anything that's in there.
Right.
So it's no longer raw milk, and now they add the bacteria that they're going to use, the cultures that they're going to use to make their milk. And so we can't have raw milk yogurt unless you make your own. And you can buy cultures from a couple different companies. Bodyhealth.com has a kefir yogurt. There are a couple others. Or you can just take whatever yogurt you've got, as long as it contains active cultures. And be careful. Some of the companies are lying a little bit. Some of them are just using the wrong words and they didn't mean to lie. Some of them are using them on purpose. And it says made with active cultures. So if you put active cultures in the yogurt and it gels up and lactoferments and becomes yogurt, and then you pasteurize it again, you made it with active cultures, but they're not there anymore. So you want contains active cultures.
Very good.
So I like the really good quality ones, Stonyfield, Nancy's, Brown Cow. I mean, there are a number of ones out there that contain active cultures. But you could take your raw milk and put a tablespoon of a good quality, unflavored, unsweetened, just a yogurt. And of course, we can go over whole milk versus non-fat and low-fat later, because that's another big issue. But you put that into your raw milk, mix it up, and let it sit out on the counter at around 70, 75 degrees, and all the cultures are in there, and that will come in along with the ones, of course, that were in the milk, and you will get a thickened milk, which, depending on the particular cultures you use and how long you leave it there, may get as thick as yogurt, or may remain thick but drinkable, which is usually called kefir or kefir, K-E-F-I-R.
Okay, so that's the yogurt story.
That's the yogurt story. So yogurt, I consider yogurt to be a fairly healthy food as long as somebody isn't truly allergic to dairy, because the lactofermentation process will digest and eat up most of the lactose. So if the lactose was the person's only problem, we've gotten rid of enough of it by turning it into yogurt that a lot of people don't have a problem with yogurt. Others still do, so it depends on the individual. But in order for it to be a healthy yogurt, I don't want all sorts of garbage added to the yogurt. So I tell people, get a good brand. Get Stonyfield, get Nancy's, get Brown Cow. There are some other good brands out there. I don't have them all in my head. But get one, get a whole milk yogurt, get an unflavored yogurt, get an unsweetened yogurt. So now we're just getting yogurt.
Right.
Organic, most definitely organic, so it doesn't have a lot of other trash in it as well. And now if you want it to taste good and you don't like sour products, lacto-fermenting is a souring product. Right. It is good for you.
Supposed to be natural.
Natural, right.
Yeah.
But people don't like sour anymore. We have salt tooth, we have a sweet tooth, but we don't have a sour tooth. Bitters and sours are actually good for us. But if you want to make it as bad as the garbage that you get in there in the other containers, I won't mention their brands, but still healthier, then put in raw, fresh fruit of your liking. Handful of blueberries would be a good way to go, because blueberries are very high in nutrients and very low in sugar. Mix that in and put some drops of a good stevia in. Stevita is my favorite brand, but whatever. Mix that in, and now you've sweetened it, put some fruit in it, but it's not the horrible jelly garbage that they're adding to it. So you've made your own fruit-flavored yogurt from a better quality yogurt.
With no sugar.
With no sugar added.
And that's where another problem people go into. They just add. And that's another video altogether.
Another video altogether.
Yes.
But I really do tell people, stay with whole milk. The easiest way to put it is that whether your belief system says God, Mother Nature, the planet, whether you're spiritual but you don't use any of that, I don't care, whatever you want to, however you say foods are given to us, whatever that energy or organism or whatever it may be, believe me, they're smarter than we are. So whether it's, God or nature or whatever, they're smarter than we are. So every time you take a food that was presented to us by the planet in one way, and you think you're smart enough that you can remove part of it to make it better, you lose. Chicken has skin on it. Eggs have yolks in them. Dairy has butterfat in it. You remove something that God or Mother Nature gave to you, for you, and you lose. Leave it alone. Make sure it was raised correctly to the best of your ability. make sure that the chickens were free range or free roaming, that the eggs were free range or free roaming chickens and organic whenever possible. But leave the parts there that are supposed to be there and stop thinking that we know more, because we don't.
Do you have any thoughts on taking acidophilus tablets or aftermarket after the acidophilus? Because obviously that's related to this milk thing.
Sure. Well, there's no question that acidophilus, bifidus, and a number of other bacteria are normal inhabitants of the human gastrointestinal tract, the GI tract. And the researchers, there are a number of different research scientists done a lot of research on this. Nigel Plummer is one of the ones that presents at a lot of our conferences. They have shown that just one bout of antibiotics, and it could have been 10 years ago. 10 years ago, for some reason, you got some particular condition, the doctor gave you antibiotics, and you haven't had any since then. You may have killed off most of the beneficial bacteria in your intestines, and in 10 years, most of it didn't grow back yet. It's still not there. In some people, it slowly did, but because we're eating all the wrong things, in many people it didn't. If you love yogurt and you've been eating, a fair amount of yogurt or raw milk, much better chance that a lot of it has grown back. But for most part, it hasn't. And so one of the things that we do know, and there's published research on it, is if for some reason you have to go on antibiotics, obviously if you go to a really good health practitioner, that will happen less often, because we'll be able to help your body without the antibiotics many times, not always. But if you have to go on antibiotics, you will feel better and do better if during the entire time you're on the antibiotics, every day, simply at a different time of day than when you take the antibiotic, you take a really good quality probiotic. Those are the good bacteria. Acidophilus and bifidus are called probiotics. Antibiotic is against life. Right. Bios is life. Probiotic is for life, and it's got a bunch of living bacteria in it. There are a lot of good brands out there. Florosource and Jarrow makes a good one. There are a couple of other really good ones.
Are they tablets? Are they vitamins? Are they?
Usually they're either capsules of a powder or the powder itself. If you're working with a health practitioner, they'll have brands that you won't be able to get in the store. If at a different time of day than you're taking the antibiotic, you would take one of these capsules or a couple of these capsules, then the antibiotic's killing off as many bad guys as it can. That's why they gave it to you. And all of your good guys at the same time, which is why a lot of people get either horribly constipated or horrible diarrhea while they're getting antibiotics. If you're taking probiotics every day, a couple times a day, and then continue for 2 or 3 months after the antibiotics have stopped, then you can often circumvent those problems and not feel as bad. So the antibiotics are doing the good part, but they're doing a little less of the bad part because you keep on putting the good ones in. Right. So the good bacteria are definitely good for us. You can't ever have too many good bacteria. It simply comes out in your stool. It's not a problem. Yogurt gives you some, and for some people just eating yogurt is enough if it's a good yogurt. Other people have to take additional supplements. Some of the yogurts have so few good bacteria in them that you'd be better off taking a capsule. Some of the capsules are so bad, you'd be getting more from a better yogurt. So that's where it helps to find a health practitioner that knows what he or she is doing to point you toward the better brands.
And are those probiotics kept in the refrigerator so that they stay longer?
In general, almost every probiotic is not very long-term shelf stable. So generally the better ones are going to be kept in the refrigerator. However, a lot of the bad ones tell the store or the health practitioner to keep them in the refrigerator. So just the fact that it's in the refrigerator doesn't make it any better. If they sell a product in which almost everything in it is dead, and they say refrigerate, and the store puts it in the refrigerator, and the customer goes in and goes, oh, I want the ones that are refrigerated, those are better, they may be, or they may not be. But yes, in general, almost all the ones in the store, even if they say they don't have to be refrigerated, when you get them, put them in the refrigerator till you use them. That will help. There's only one company's product out there made by Lifestar where what they claim to do is harvest immature bacteria somehow before they full maturity, and they guarantee 5-year shelf stability. I don't know whether that's true, but I have had very good luck with that as one of the 5 different companies that I carry. So certainly that's one of the good ones.
Okay. So milk is good for you, huh?
Milk is good for you if it's good milk and you're not one of those few people that has an intolerance. There are actually studies that were done and individuals in Europe that put people on raw milk fasts, where all they drank was raw milk for a month. And you think about it, because people have asked me, have I read any of these books about people that were helped with tuberculosis or other bad diseases by going on an all milk diet for a period of time? What do I think about those things? To me, one of the most important things is how the food came to be. So in other words, was it grown correctly? Did it get the right fertilizers? Were the cows grazing on grass instead of giving corn? Were the cattle grazing on grass instead of giving corn? All those various different things. That's number one. Number two is, what do we do to process it? Because there are a lot of people out there that understand, and raw milk would be a good example, that raw foods in general, properly, I was going to say properly prepared, but you don't prepare raw foods. You could put herbs and spices on them.
Presented.
But properly presented would be a better word, exactly. Are very, very healthy for us. A lot of people will say a raw food diet is very healthy. But a lot of the people that will say that are actually wrong from the way they're representing it, because most of the people that promote the consumption of raw foods are strict vegetarians. And that's not a healthy way of living. We don't even have any fifth-generation strict vegetarians on this planet to point to, whereas we've got fifth generation of all sorts of other different things. So you need 5 generations, according to research done by Weston Price and Francis Pottenger years and years ago, to prove that any particular method of eating works. The Price-Pottenger Foundation has a lot of that information at ppnf.org, which is Price-Pottenger Nutrition Foundation. But you can't ever say, I ate this way for 6 months and felt better, therefore this is a good way of eating. Because maybe at the same time it's helping this, it's hurting 5 other things. You need multiple generations eating the same types of diet to prove that it's not going to cause major other problems and you were better off the way you were. You can't just do it for a small amount of time.
Right.
But nonetheless, I do agree when somebody says, is a raw food method of eating healthy, as long as they don't make the mistake of saying, oh, but I didn't mean animal foods. So, I meant only vegetable foods and fruits. So I believe that some of the people that have done, let's say, milk fasting, and of course it isn't really fasting, fasting is water, but they call it a mono-food fast, where somebody is consuming nothing but raw milk. That may be the first time in this person's life, since they were weaned, that they got raw animal protein. And raw foods are better for us. All of the nutrients are still there in the most easily assimilable fashion. So it doesn't surprise me that that might be very, very helpful for somebody. On the same plane, however, if somebody is eating good quality sashimi, which is raw fish, ceviche, which is raw fish, steak tartare or carpaccio, which is raw beef or filet, any of these different things are all very beneficial because they're raw. So some of the reasons that some of the raw milk type fasts have helped a lot of people in things that have been written up may not be because it was milk, but because it was raw. On the other hand, milk is the only food that we can point to, as we said an hour ago, that is a 100% complete food. And of course, if the mother was eating correctly, whether the mother is a cow or a person, a very, very, very healthy complete food, and is the sole sustenance of a baby, maybe for 3 years. So maybe it is also because it's raw milk, because it's so much more complete. Who knows?
So one thing we didn't talk about, and you had mentioned on the phone yesterday, and I want to ask you, a lot of people think, and you look at milk and you think, gee, it's kind of thick. And, a lot of people get mucus when they drink milk.
Ah, yes.
Because it is a thick substance and it makes you mucusy.
The mucus-producing effect of milk. I love that's one of my favorite topics. I don't think I ever get through a class every semester without somebody saying, but I thought milk was mucus-producing. I know a lot of people, every time they drink milk, they start talking like this, an hour later or a day later, and their eyes swell up. And so I go, well, do you know any people that are allergic to, let's say, cats or dogs or some kind of pollen? Where when they go into a person's house that has a cat or a dog, or when it's a certain season of the year and that pollen's out, that they produce a lot of mucus. And of course everybody says, lots of people I know are allergic to cats or dogs and certainly different pollens. I say, okay, so in other words, you therefore would tell people that, you know, cats and dogs are mucus producing. And they look at me like, huh? And I go, well, I mean, if when milk produces mucus, we call it a mucus producing food, then why don't we call cats and dogs mucus producing? Because milk doesn't do that in everybody. Cats and dogs don't do it in everybody. So what's the double standard here that the dog's not mucus producing, but the milk is mucus producing? Well, the answer is very simple. A lot of people have a lot of allergies. And if you consume something to which you are allergic, you have a histamine reaction, which is the standard allergy that medicine talks about. It's an immunoglobulin E reaction. There are a number of other reactions which they don't call allergies, but they really are. But if it's a histamine reaction, then you produce mucus. And if you are allergic to milk, it produces mucus. If you are allergic to sunflower oil, it produces mucus. If you're allergic to cats or dogs, they produce mucus. So really what's going on is very, very simple. A lot of people are allergic to cats and dogs. A lot of people are allergic to milk. And if you are one of the people that are allergic to milk, that have that type of allergy, because somebody else could have a different one. Somebody else drinks milk, it makes them tired. Somebody else drinks milk or eats peanuts and it makes them hyperactive. Somebody else, it gives them an itch. There are different types of reactions we can have which are called food intolerances. But if it stuffs you up, that's a histamine reaction. You are allergic to milk. And it's not because milk was mucus producing any more than it's because dogs are mucus producing. It's because you're allergic to milk. Could have been apples, could have been peanuts, could have been dogs. You're allergic to milk. Milk is not mucus producing. It's a food like many others that people are allergic to. And in the case of pasteurized homogenized milk, many people are allergic to it. So many people get mucus from it because their body can't deal with it that we think of it as a mucus producing food rather than that we have turned it by screwing it up pretty majorly into a food that a larger percentage of the public is allergic to.
Because of the fact it is pasteurized and homogenized.
Pasteurized homogenized, yep.